So online. Okay, so can somebody watch for him? So Vanessa, you're going to watch for Mr. Fling and bring him over when you see him. Okay. All right. So I'm going to call the select board meeting to order on May 20th at, excuse me?
It is.
It is. Can you not hear me now? Better? All right, so I'll call the select board meeting to order on May 20th at 6:30 PM. So good evening, everybody. Okay, so we're going to start off with public comment, which is for anything that is not on the agenda, and 3 minutes or less, please. So we have somebody with their hand raised. Okay, so can you bring over Peter? So Peter, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I want to express my concern about the recent voting on the Neary School project.
Okay, can you introduce yourself first?
Peter Lapine, 27 Parkerville Road, Southborough.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so there was a meeting and there was a ballot voting day, and at both venues, the Neary School project was defeated approximately 2-1, right? Based on the reporting of I was there at Algonquin and I voted on Tuesday.
Peter, we've actually got this on our agenda. So if you want to talk about something not on the agenda, that's fine, but we're about to talk about the Neary project, the votes, et cetera, and the path forward.
Yeah, and your entry on the agenda says how to move forward with it. That's my concern. There's no move forward. The town has spoken twice over, an overwhelming majority. We don't want anything done with the Neary School. And I believe,
Okay, I'm still going to cut you off because this is on the agenda. So if you want to zoom back in when we get to it, that's fine. This is for things not on the agenda.
and you're going to allow public comment during the meeting on these items? Or
Absolutely.
are
Absolutely.
people forced to wait till the public comment section at the very end?
No, during the meeting, we will allow public comment for the items on the agenda, including the Neary project, as we always do. Okay.
All right.
Anybody else, Vanessa? All right. Okay, so there he is. Hi, Tim. So before we get started, I want to welcome our newest select board member, Tim Fling, who is joining us from, I believe, Germany.
Yep.
Can you hear us, Tim?
I can hear you nice and clear. Thanks.
Okay, good. So welcome. Okay, this is really a habit. Okay, so we are going to entertain appointing a new police officer tonight. So Chief Newell.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for having us here tonight. We're here to request the appointment of Mr. Brian Collins to the position of full-time police officer with the Southborough Police Department. Mr. Collins is a resident of Grafton, Mass. He is currently working as a full-time police sergeant for the Northbridge Police Department. He's been in law enforcement for approximately 14 years, with 4 of them serving as a sergeant in a supervisory position. He has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Southern New Hampshire University and is currently working on his master's from the same university. And Brian will be bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience to our department, which we look forward to. And that's experience that includes supervisory experience, which is a great asset to have. We're excited to have Brian as a part of our team, and we look forward to him starting our field training program, which would begin as early as tomorrow morning, if appointed tonight. So it's
No
ready
rest
to
for the
go.
weary, my goodness.
Yeah. This addition to our department will bring our number of full-time sworn officers to 20, with 2 more positions to fill. And at this time, do you have any questions for myself or Mr. Collins?
So 2 more right now, not including the new positions that are opening up
Correct.
July 1st. Okay, all right.
For this fiscal year, yes.
Okay, all right. So I'll start at the end. Al,
No questions.
Marguerite,
No questions. Welcome. I don't have any questions, but I was just very impressed by your resume and the sergeant experience you have. And so I think you're coming into a great department and sounds like you got a lot of experience and thank you for coming.
So this is our second North Bridge,
Yes.
our second North Bridge. So your commute's going to be better, right? I think a little bit better.
Just about the same.
Okay. All right. So I don't have any questions. It looks like you are well qualified and you're joining a really, really good police force and you've got a good group of colleagues to work with for sure. So welcome. All right, Andrew, you want to make the motion?
All right. I move that we appoint Brian Collins as a South. I move that we appoint Brian Collins as an officer to the Southborough Police Department.
I agree.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of appointing Mr. Collins to the police department immediately? Good, there you go. Hold on, I've got to do this again. I forgot Mr. Flink's here, so we've got to do a roll call vote when you've got someone that's remote. So we're going to do this again. So Tim,
Yes.
okay, Al,
Yes.
Marguerite,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Cook is aye. So 5-0. Okay.
Thank you. And with this, I'd like to turn the ceremony over to our town clerk, Mr. Jim Hegarty, who will do the swearing in for Brian Collins.
Brian Collins solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties incumbent upon you as a probationary police officer in the town of Southborough, according to the best of your ability and understanding, agreeable to the rules and regulations of the police department, the Constitution, the laws of the United States, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the rules, regulations, and bylaws made under the authority of the select board. So congratulations.
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 One more thing before we leave at this time, I just wanted to take a minute to thank the board, to thank Mr. Purple, to thank the residents of Southborough for the continuous support of our department, recognizing the needs of the department, and that's most evident in the most up-to-date contract that we have with the town. We're able to attract high-quality candidates and fill our department with some of the best officers that we could possibly have. So I just want to take a moment and thank everyone for their continuous support, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
And we're going to clear out, so.
Take some pictures if you want to. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break while we switch hats here.
Close my Zoom window. Oh, I got it. There it is. What?
Vanessa, we've got to watch for quorums to be here. So we've got 2 K-8 school committee members here right now. We've got 1, 2, 3. We got 3 here? Okay, am I counting wrong? So I've got, it's okay, Mary. Okay, we've got at least 3 Neary Building Committee members here right now, Denise, Mark, and I. Jason will be here, so we just got to help me watch Vanessa when they get here so they can call their meetings to order. Okay, so next up, Travis, you want to come up with Christine? Nice to see you. It's nice for, thank you for coming. So since you're here, why don't you introduce Christine?
Yes, so Christine's hoping to get appointed for our 5th Recreation Commission slot that we have open right now. So we're very excited to have her. She's obviously a resident. She's got kids that are in the Southborough schools, so it'll be a fresh perspective from our commission. And we're looking forward to getting her input and getting to know her and having her be part of our commission team.
That's great. And it says in your memo that the commission did vote to support her appointment.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we're a tough bunch. We will ask you some grueling questions, and I'll start with Al.
No questions.
Marguerite.
I don't have any questions either.
I don't have any questions.
Come on, Andrea, ask for one.
Thank you for stepping forward and, your application showed you've got some relevant experience and have volunteered before. So thank you for that. And I look forward to supporting your appointment.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to ask a question. Okay, so you were part of the extended day program before, and then
Yes.
you're still, it sounds like you're a little bit part of it now.
Yes.
Okay, so that's great. We love extended day.
Mhm.
So explain, I'm just interested exactly what you do with the, being the executive director of the high school partnerships Kaplan. What does that mean?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I've actually, so I've lived in Southborough my whole life. I grew up here, so I'm excited to continue and help my kids prosper in town. I work for Kaplan. It's an education company. I've been there for 15 years. My background is in education and I have a master's in school counseling. At Kaplan, I work with school districts across the country, large school districts, New York City, Chicago Public Schools, et cetera, to bring Kaplan's test preparation services in the high school division, so SAT, ACT, AP, to school districts at a substantially discounted rate to promote equity in learning.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I think you will be a great addition to the rec commission. It's a great department. You've got a truly really good department to work with the team there, with Travis and his team, Christina, et cetera. But so you are needed. They've got some projects on the table that are going to need to be worked on pretty hard. So, all right, Andrew, you want to make the motion?
You forgot Mr. Fling.
Okay, keep reminding me. I'm just not used to. Sorry, Tim. So do you have any questions for Christine?
No, I have no questions at this time. Looking forward to her joining.
Okay, so roll call vote after we make the motion. So Andrew?
I move that the board appoint Christine Raylander to the Southborough Recreation Commission for a term to expire June 30, 2027.
Second?
Okay. So Margaret, you seconded? Okay, roll call vote. Tim?
Yes.
So I don't forget him. Al?
Aye.
Marguerite?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And Cook is aye, 5-0. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
So the next step is you've got to get sworn in. And the town clerk does that. You'll get an appointment letter. And once you get that, you can be sworn in, and you need to do that within the next 30 days. Right? Right. So you get the letter tomorrow. The town clerk just walked in the back door. That's who you go see, or he in his office. I wish we could do it tonight, but you got to get your letter first. So,
That's okay.
so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in too.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for the time
Thanks,
and the
Travis.
support.
Vanessa, is Bill here? Can you bring him over? There he is. Hey, Bill.
Good evening. Hi,
Good evening. Thank you for doing this on your vacation.
no problem.
Okay. So we've got your memo, and I'm just going to ask you to take it from here because I'm not sure what you want us to do or not to do with it.
I don't want you to take any action. This is just for your information on changes that are on the horizon for stormwater with the
Hey,
federal.
you're fading out, Bill. We cannot hear you currently.
That's better.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. So I'm not looking for a vote. This is simply to update the select board on changes that are on the horizon for the EPA with regard to stormwater in the town of Southborough and other communities across the country. So with that, I'll just quickly run through what some of the anticipated changes are. This is just for information at this point, and basically get the dialogue going so you're not surprised when changes occur. So the stormwater stuff dates back to 1990. That's when the EPA came out under the Clean Water Act, requiring communities with certain population densities to do certain things that pertain to stormwater. The program over the years since 1990 has evolved. 2016, we had to map our system. We do have a rudimentary map that's in GIS. And the 2016 permit is now becoming a proposed 2025 permit with new changes. These changes are set to go into effect on July 1st. It's actually, because it's draft permit, comments on the permit actually close tomorrow. So it's a little late for us to get them in. I do know the Stormwater Coalition that Southborough belongs to is submitting some comments. That's my understanding. So just quickly to run through some of the changes. For example, when we do a road widening project, we must now improve stormwater conditions. Within a year of the permit being issued, we have to identify and prioritize the catch basins that do not meet the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook standards, which means a 4-foot sump below the invert. I would say most of our catch basins do not meet that standard. The newer ones may, but most of them do not, from what I've seen. Within 5 years, we're supposed to replace 20% of those catch basins. We have well over 3,000 catch basins in town. And I'd say using Mass DOT weighted average bid prices, we're looking probably $7,000 to $10,000 per structure for replacement. Street sweeping, they're looking to get done twice per year, once in the spring and once in the fall. The comments surrounding that, largely pertain to collection of leaves and disposal of leaves within the system. It's still being discussed. That's one of the major things that towns have an issue with. We have a number of requirements. I included in my packet something that Fuss and O'Neill had prepared for us to kind of give us an idea of the dollar impact as we go forward. And this is not a year one cost. This may be, spread out year to year as time goes on. Some of those spots where we have dollars in the chart that you have, just so dollar signs, because they have to do some preliminary work to better understand what the dollar financial impact is on some of those things. But I just wanted to get this out there, make you aware of it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I don't want to take too long going through the details of this technical stuff, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So Bill, 7,000 per, and we've got 3,000?
You said 9,000.
I would say 7,000 to 10,000 per catch basin structure. We have well over 3,000 catch basins in the town.
So if you did every single one, it'd be 21 to $30 million?
That's correct.
So how many do you think, given your road plans the next few years, how many do you think really do involve road widening?
Widening's a key term, I think. If we maintain, it's contradictory to things that we've done in the past. For example, we've adopted Complete Streets program. We're a complete streets community, which means that when we have the opportunity, we're gonna, provide accommodations for bike lanes and pedestrians where they don't currently exist. So once you start doing that, adding the sidewalks in, that'll trigger this widening and you'll have to improve the stormwater systems. Now, we were going to assess them. That's always been my plan. And if they warranted improvement, then we do it. But this is mandating changes and improvements.
So if we were to take a hard look over the summer about what advisory's been recommending for a couple of years, is the separate stormwater enterprise fund, is this type of cost to upgrade the catch basins, that would go over to that?
That's correct.
All right. Anybody have any other questions for Bill while he's here? Tim?
No questions at this time.
Al?
Not at this time.
Marguerite?
I mean, Bill, you addressed the points about the catch basin, which was the one thing that in reading this, I could kind of understand it. A lot of it's very abstract, but I don't want, it doesn't make sense to take up a lot of time on this tonight, but definitely this is something we need to talk about in more detail within the next couple months.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
Thank
Can I
you.
actually ask one
Of
before we
course.
go? So if the standard is to replace 20% of prioritize, you first have to identify and prioritize the catch basins that don't meet the standards, and then you replace the prioritized ones are just the ones that don't meet the stormwater handbook standard.
I asked that very question to the engineer, and the working at this point, there's a lot of questions out there still. But at this point, the working assumption is it's 20% of all the catch basins in the system, not just the prioritized.
Yes.
Bill, what does it actually mean to modernize a catch basin?
It would mean you do an assessment of the catch basin. Most of our catch basins are block concrete structures that were constructed block by block, as you might expect. I apologize. I'm getting some feedback in my my headphones. So most of our catch basins are block structures with shallow sumps. That's the depth of headroom basically below the bottom pipe. The state requires 4 feet of sump below that pipe. Most of ours probably at most have 2 feet. So that catches sediment from the street, from projects, construction projects, goes down the storm drain, and it catches that in the catch basin and it holds it. If you don't have a sump, then it continues on. So one thing is the sump depth. Another thing is they have oil water separator hoods that you put on the outlet pipes of these stormwater catch basins, and that keeps the oils and greases in the catch basin structure. And again, that creates more of a hazardous material with the sediment that's in there. So when we just excavate or remove the sediment, we have to pay to get rid of that as hazardous materials.
Okay, thanks.
Got it, Marguerite? Okay. Anybody else? Connie?
Just a quick question. So if the town does any municipal projects as far as hot topping or grading any of their own properties, are we subject to this at the time that we do it?
Yes, we have to incorporate any standard BMP requirements that are required of all other, entities, whether they're private or, businesses. And there are size thresholds. So, when we do a project that's a half an acre or more, then we trigger a threshold and we have to design for stormwater.
Okay, thank you. So any public project would require this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Everybody have a good night.
Go back to your vacation.
Okay.
All right, so we're waiting for a couple people to be here at 7 for the new discussion. So I'm going to move up the chair's report so we can get that done in the next 6 minutes and the town administrator report. First one is I want to recognize the service of Sam Stivers on the select board and lots of other things. Sam served 2 terms on select board. He served, I think, 2 terms on advisory. He is on a lot of other committees. Sam, which is typical to Sam, the next day, sent me a list of all the committees that he's on besides select board. And we went through them and we don't think that there's any action that needs to be taken as far as reappointing him because he's not on the select board anymore. None of them are positions where he's been appointed as the select board rep. So we think they're all good as far as those goes. And he specifically asked to stay on all those. So he wants to continue to provide his excellent service. I know Sam well. He was on advisory with me for years in select board. He is definitely a mentor of mine. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with him. If anybody knows anything about Sam, he never misses a meeting. He goes to every single committee meeting there is, if he can. He actually still working on top of that. So he's got a volume of knowledge that's very helpful with what we do because he listens to every other committee. He goes to he did go to the transfer station on Saturdays and put up his little umbrella and for hours and would listen to anybody that had anything to say, make notes, copious notes. So he has certainly served this town well and intends to continue doing so. This is a chair's report, but I'm happy for anybody else to weigh in on the select board as far as Mr. Stivers.
Well, I'll just say, echo a lot of what you said, and he's extremely dedicated and I think more so than any person spent tremendous amount of time preparing for each meeting and reading a lot, thinking about, outside the box ideas, a lot, some of which, he pushed hard to and get them happen. Some of them remain kind of conceptual, but I also really appreciated he had a very good sense of humor and had a way of diffusing sometimes tense situations with jokes and levity, and that's something we need.
He was a true colleague. Marguerite?
I just would say, Sam, thank you so much for your enormous generosity to this town.
Al?
I don't know how he does it.
I know.
Uh,
It's true.
yeah, the number of things that he takes in, he clearly doesn't have a life beyond this, and he is a tremendous asset to this community, and I'm sure he will continue to be so.
Tim?
Sam was one of the first people that I got a chance to watch from joining the town. So I really did learn a lot from him, and we'll miss some of his contributions that he's been making over the years, and really thank him for his time.
So I heard he went to the library to the cultural arts event last Wednesday and got a standing ovation. So that was nice. So good for him. Okay, he told me to keep this low key, so I think that was, I think I did what he wanted to do, and I go too far. Okay, so the next one I wanted to also show appreciation for is Jesse Stein. So Jesse decided not to run for another term on planning board. He is on the Affordable House Trust, so he's going to continue his service to the town. He was on the planning board for 12 full years. He was appointed to fill the term of Paul Semino when Paul left the planning board to go to the select board. Then he ran for 2 terms after that. Planning boards are 5-year terms. So I went to the planning board on Monday to thank him on behalf of the select board. And I said, because the nature of your work, you're not always the most popular board. I said, select board's with you, so we're right there with you too, but we at least get a lot of good things to do too, on top of the harder things and the stuff that they do. I mean, they were there that night with a pile of paper this high with a agenda full of very complicated things. So Jesse goes to work all day long, works hard, then has to come, and they have to really pay attention. They're just full of details as far as what they have to do. But I tell you what I saw that night, which I kind of knew but fully appreciated. That is a very collegial board. They do respect each other. They work together. I stayed for a vote because I was interested in how they were going to deal with the new Valvoline facility that's going to be at the corner of Flag and Route 9. The problem there was where you're going to turn into. Are you going to turn in from Route 9? You're going to turn in from Flag. And there were some people there that wanted Flag and some people there that wanted Route 9. So the board, they had a good discussion. They took public comment and then they voted 3-2. So it's a totally split vote, but they did it very graciously and appreciated what they did. And so I thought it was a very good send off to Jesse. But Jesse, for those that know him, is truly again another team player and has truly served this town well as far as planning board goes. All right. All right, so I'm full of recognitions tonight. Okay, so wanted to also recognize Marguerite, the Library Board of Trustees, for hosting candidates night. Who are you pointing to?
It's Mary Tinty.
Oh, there's Mary. Sorry, Mary. I forget you're back. I can't see you. Laura's blocking you. Okay, so every year the Library Board of Trustees host candidates night to allow people who are in a contested race to come express their views, get questions answered. So they did it again this year at the library. It was not well attended, I will say that, which was unfortunate, but that's not their fault. But I just wanted to compliment the library board again for doing a very nice event, food, everything, and then compliment Janet Maney for doing an excellent job as the moderator, which she has for a couple of years. She's good. I applaud what she does and a good selection from the library board. So thank you, Marguerite. Okay, last one is Youth and Family Services they're trying to gauge a lot of community feedback for things that they want to implement in the work that they do. They do very difficult work in this town and they are trying to get a lot of information. So there's a survey. You can go to my Southborough. Vanessa, where else can they access it? Okay, so we're on homepage, but I've been asked by the Youth and Family Services Director to please ask everybody to try to fill the survey. I think it's 10 minutes maybe is what they think to do it, so it's not long. And it will provide very useful information for the work that they do. So hopefully everybody here will go home and fill out that survey. All right, Mr. Purple.
Just quickly, I just wanted to remind the board and those people watching the meeting, the Woo Sox, Worcester Red Sox during the year, they have what they call their town takeovers where they celebrate a community at one of their games. We are fortunate or unfortunate, I guess, to be part of the boroughs. So they lump us with 3 other communities. So it's the Battle of the Boroughs for Southborough, Northborough, Westborough, and Marlborough. It's game tomorrow night. We have information out on our social media up on the website. If you buy tickets using the QR code, if you want to come to the game, they do, the funds do go to help benefit nonprofits from that town. We've identified the scholarship committee for that. And it's a really good night. I will point out that it is also Bring Your Cat Night. So I'm not sure.
Are you serious?
I am serious. I apologize. They do it for the dogs. And so they've identified it as, I think it's Vanessa, correct me, per in the park. So you can bring your cat. So this may not go well. But and I also do want to acknowledge Vanessa Hale, who has been helping to coordinate with the Woo Sox team, and their people over there. It's usually hurry up at the end. And so trying to get everything all set. So I do appreciate that. And coordinating with 3 other communities is not easy either. So for those people that are interested, again, tomorrow night, and you could use the QR code on the website or out on social media to purchase tickets. It will benefit the scholarship committee.
So you're going to have to do a follow-up report about the cats. But next you can tell us how that went. My goodness. Whoever decided that, I don't think has a cat.
I don't know.
So, okay, so now we are going to get to the discussion on the Neary School project. But we've got a couple committees here that need to call their committees to order because we've got quorums here. So Jason, you want to come on up? Or Neary Building Committee. This is Jason Malinowski, the chair of the Neary Building Committee and chair of the Capital Committee.
Good evening. I'll call the Neary Building Committee meeting to order at 7:03 p.m.
All right, now what about K through 8? I see 2 here.
You probably got to check Zoom.
Who's in the Zoom? Okay. So why don't we bring over Chelsea and Roger? Vanessa. Roger, of course, is part of 2 committees.
We'll see Chelsea.
You don't see Chelsea? Is Roger, who's vice chair right now? You are? Okay. So you may have to call your committee to order if Chelsea's not there.
I think her iPhone.
I see her now. There she
Hi,
is.
it's Chelsea.
Okay. Hey,
you
Chelsea.
hear me?
Sorry, we didn't see you.
No
So, Chelsea,
problem.
you've
So I
got-
call that. I
Go
have
ahead.
4 out of 5.
Yes, you've
So
got
I'm going
4
to
out of
call
5.
these. Okay, thanks. I'm going to call the Southborough K-8 school committee meeting to order at 7:04 with 4 out of 5 members present. Thank you.
Okay. And then Andrew Pfaff is here. Andrew, I don't think you, Marcy's here. Where's Marcy? That's Marcy. So I think you've only got 2, so you don't have to do anything yet. But you didn't post a meeting anyway, right?
Nope.
Andrew? You didn't post a meeting. Okay, so never mind. Okay. So welcome, Mr. Martineau.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming too. So this agenda item is to discuss the Neary School project that was recently voted on and failed at both the special town meeting and the town election on Tuesday. The purpose of this item is to basically, we hope to end up with a path forward. I think 2 things happen with this project that we can pretty much agree on too. We know that something's got to be done to Neary. Neary cannot continue as a school without a whole lot of change being done to it. So we know we've got to do something. We've got to decide now what to do. So what I thought I'd do, given Jason's here, and he was chair of the Neary Building Committee, is to turn it over to him to get his thoughts on what he thinks might be the better path forward at this point.
Thank you. And I welcome participation from, both the superintendent and any Neary Building Committee member as I go through this. I think it's important to level set and summarize the meeting that the Neary Building Committee already had last week in terms of our proposed path forward and some steps that we think are important for the community to take. I would say that if you actually rewatch, anyone that has not watched the meeting that rewatches it, I think there are different approaches to how we move forward. But I will tell you that the committee was unanimous in looking forward and not back. There are certainly lessons that we can all learn from the process. But I think when we reflect back, the committee was given a charge and we executed on that charge. The community just didn't like and did not support the path that came forward. So I think what we need to do is we need to think about where can and should we go and at what pace should we do that. The first thing I think we need to acknowledge is we are still within the 120-day window granted to us by the MSBA. We are required by next week to submit a letter, which I think should be a summary of where we land tonight with multiple elected boards here, of where we as a community are going to go with that time. I think it's also important to note we don't have to make a decision tonight, but I think it's important to start the dialogue of that. And the MSBA just wants to know whether there is going to be additional dialogue or not. I think the first step that we have to take is understand where the community wants to go. I think, Kathy, as you noted, we heard very little throughout this whole process, both from those in support and those against the project, that we should just continue in status quo. We heard a lot throughout the process, again, from yes and no's, that the elementary school configuration, maintaining 3 elementary schools in our out of 4 total for our K-8 structure, most people said not fit for purpose. That goes back to initial surveying up to 2 years ago and continued throughout the process. But how do we consolidate the elementary schools is obviously the big question mark that continues to exist. We also heard throughout the process questions about the adjacency to the landfill. And it is, I think, unclear to our committee at this point, based on where the vote landed, whether that was a mitigating factor or a critical factor to where we're at today as compared to the cost and the overall town financial picture. Our initial guess, right, and this is a guess that we need help and feedback from the community on, is it's the combined factors, not one individual factor. And obviously the timing of everything that we're looking at here in terms of the overall geopolitical climate that we all are living in. So I think the first thing we need to answer as a community is whether we want to do anything ever at the Neary site. So stop talking about timing of how quickly we're going to do it and in what speed we're going to do it and how much we're going to do, whether it's a base repair, 2 grades or 4 grades. But I think we need to take a step back and understand the temperature from the community of whether we should stop looking, period, at 53 Parkerville Road. And if that is the answer, then it starts a series of other steps the community will have to take, at least without the initial support of the MSBA. We certainly can get back in line in a future statement of interest. As we denoted multiple times throughout the process, that's at least a 3-year window, regardless of the address we're looking at. The other important factor to confirm for the community is after the failed vote, we did have a discussion with the MSBA. Any changes to any part of the plan, we go back to the statement of interest phase, which is where we were at 3 years ago. So if you take the exact same plan, put it on a different site, that does not qualify. You try to scale back the project to a different cost, that does not qualify. So I think that's an important factor for everyone to understand. The other thing that, as we reflect and look ahead and compare it to successful projects that have occurred in this town, mainly looking at the public safety building, is in this interest, the Neary Building Committee was basically set up in what I would call an island. And that island was working through a very systematic process, again, dictated by the fact that town meeting originally voted to do feasibility funding with the MSBA, and we followed their prescribed process. I don't think you'll find a single person that likes every step of every process, regardless of whether it's prescribed by this board or that board, but it was a process that we followed. When we look at that process, one of the things we heard loud and clear was we want a choice. We heard that over and over and over again by a lot of people on both sides of the vote in the last week. We think it's critically important, and we have validated that we can do this. Again, it would be on Southborough's dime if the voters decided to do something in the short term. But I think it is prudent to provide options, whether we do it at a future town meeting, whether we do it through surveying, whether we do it through continued open forums. That is, I think, a topic we can all discuss tonight. The Neary Building Committee, to be very clear, is not here tonight to say we should post another special town meeting and go at this the same exact way. We've received a series of emails, primarily in the last 24 hours. I believe most of you have received them as well. They speak to not bringing it back. They speak to what appears to be a perceived agenda that we are bringing it back. Go watch the replay. We're not bringing that back. We're here for a discussion of how we can actually work together and bring forward a supportable project within this community. But we have some uphill battles that we all need to face and acknowledge. One is the tone that this project took on. That tone was not dictated by our committee. It's not dictated, in my opinion, by your committee, the advisory committee, the school committee, or any other public body that weighed in on this project. It was by people that got emotional about on both sides of the project. I don't think you'll find, at least that I'm aware of, a single action where myself as chair of the committee, or any of our members participated in that tone. And we're not proud of where our community is at based on that tone. Again, based on those that were on the yes and the no side. I personally don't follow social media for a reason. This project's probably a good example of that. In my simple ask tonight, I have a few asks, but I'm going to start with, regardless of what side you're on, let's take a deep breath and remember the problem we were trying to solve and figure out how we get in the same room, not behind our keyboards or our laptops, and bring ideas to the table. Some ideas are not going to be feasible, but let the experts explain why. Some ideas, despite the amazing brilliance of all the members on our committee and those that have weighed in, someone hasn't thought about. Let's start there, regardless of what side of the equation you are on. I think anyone that I've spoken to prior to the vote knows that I'm a pretty measured individual, and I expect that our committee, regardless, depending on what you decide to do with us and the impact of that, will continue to be measured, regardless of the tone that the community tries to take. And we will be proud of the tone we take, regardless of the results, because I think it's important that we remember why we all started this. So that's my first ask, is let's all take a deep breath and start working together towards some resolution. I have no preconceived notions of what that is. I don't want to speak for the superintendent, but he made a very similar statement in our meeting last week. The second thing I would say is there is a financial cost problem in this community that is well beyond the control of the Neary Building Committee. Thanks to Mr. Litt and others that were responsible for the financial calculator that allowed people to quantify the impact of the Neary project, everyone was able to see the impact of that project in isolation on their own individual tax bill. We can sit here and challenge the assumptions that were made all day, but I continue to believe that the assumptions that were made were conservative, and we heard the following term over and over and over again: people are scared. While we certainly were presenting a project that was going to add to the tax burden, I think there is a responsibility that sits at the table in front of us, but also with the advisory committee, to take a much larger step back and look at the financial picture of the town. We had conflicting financial models in 30 days prior to town meeting, creating absolute confusion and discussion in the community that could have been worked out. And I think we can all, the ask that we would have as a committee is, regardless of what project and what form of a project comes forward to deal with our elementary school capital needs, we need a robust model with specific assumptions that both the select board and the advisory committee agree to, and some policy statements around the assumptions that are in there. We sat at annual town meeting a month before special town meeting, and the town basically approved somewhere between a 7% and 8% increase without blinking an eye. The only motions that were made, a couple were clarifying in nature on the operating budget, and one was actually to increase the operating budget. The impact of that 8% on our individual bills, short-term and long-term, is a multiplier of the project that we're discussing. When I look back to public safety, one of the key factors that I think led to it passing in the moment with the cost, which at the time was the single largest capital expenditure that the town had faced, was that the advisory committee was incredibly strong, I mean that with all due respect to the current members. But they actually created a financial model of what this town could afford and looked ahead to what could be coming down the pike. Some of those projects, such as the library and recreation center, we still haven't seen, right? Other items, such as the extent to which something would have been done at Neary, candidly wasn't part of that particular iteration, as well as many other capital expenditures that have come in front of the community. So models are obviously only as good as the inputs and the assumptions. But regardless of what you want to do with us, we think that that is a critical factor to change the tone within the community. I know there's further discussion that I think you'll find far more consensus around in terms of the residential commercial burdens. I'm not talking about split rate. I'm talking in terms of helping develop commercial. So I think it is time, as we take a step back, to understand what environment the community would be willing to support a project, what timing they would be willing to support a project, and to what size. From a state involvement perspective, it is very clear to us, we have one option in the short term, and we have endless options 3 years from now, assuming they believe that we are in the most dire of need at that particular time. Those are the windows we're working with the state, but we can control what we want to control as a community in the interim. Our proposal is very simple. We think we should all take a deep breath, but continue our work over the summer. But that work is not on the existing plan. We can certainly validate anything there if anyone would like us to. But we would like to take all the ideas, all the options that were thrown at us both at the special town meeting, but in a series of the open forums we had before that meeting, and get the experts to weigh in. Whether it be educators, whether it be architects, whether it be our owner's project manager, to provide a matrix to the town and see what temperature and what traction the town wants to take. The simple answer at the end of the summer may be status quo. Hope that's not the answer, but I think we need to acknowledge that the town makes all these decisions and we respect that. The answer could be something that could be more termed a Band-Aid. It could be something as simple as just putting a roof on that building or dealing with any immediate safety issues and kicking the can down the road 5 to 7 years. It could be looking at the other schools that were mentioned during multiple points in time during this process and articulating the pros and cons of expanding at each of those schools and not only what the cost is, but the longer term impact with what continues to be varying enrollment. Realize that we've come way down from when our current infrastructure was built. But I'll remind you of one factor I presented at town meeting in that our enrollment projections just from 2 years ago when we did that last study are already 50 students off, and that's on an increase, not a decrease. So with that being said, we're here to listen. I would encourage any select board member, any advisory committee member, any member of the community that wants to email, meet with us, talk to us. We're all ears. But also remind you, we tried to do that for 3 years and on average had 25 or less individuals. And to their credit, those that ultimately voted no, they were consistent. They provided us their feedback. We heard from that small group early and often. As we got closer to the vote, we heard predominantly from what I'll call undecided voters. But even when you have 2,500 individuals on average approximately show up at the polls, we have over 7,000 residents. So even though 2,500 showed up, we were only hearing from, on average, 25 to 30 of those leading up to the vote. So regardless of where anyone stands, I think it's important to press reset. I think it's important to know that we're here to listen. But I think it's also important that we don't put pause and we think about a path forward that everyone can support, and acknowledge that we're here to do something. What that something is, the community should have a voice in.
So thank you for that. And I also just want to take the opportunity to thank you for all the work you've done on this committee. Anybody that's worked with Jason knows that he runs a committee better than probably anybody in this town. And I know how hard you've worked on this. So I thank you for that. Okay, so to now even be more specific about what you would recommend going forward. So you're recommending keeping the Neary Building Committee alive, right? But with possible changes to its composition?
I would think we need to revisit the charge in composition in a future meeting. I know we don't have a markup here for discussion tonight. I
Yep.
think we need to hear, there's no sense in coming up with a revised charge if that's not the direction you as the appointing authority want to go. But I think you have a ton of expertise in that committee. We need more. Being at 7 in retrospect, I think hurt us. This is a huge effort, and all of us have full-time jobs, by the way. Some of us have many other priorities in our life, including kids, grandkids, etc. So while we did the best we could as volunteers, we're all members of the community. So I think we need help in terms of some diversity of thought, but I am not sitting here advocating a wholesale change, but I do think the charge needs to be very specific around options.
All right, so then based on that, then the select board tonight is going to discuss the committee, what we think we should do to solve what I'll just call the Neary problem. And hopefully end up with that decided tonight so we know what we're going to do going forward so that we try to keep, I think we've got a lot of people paying attention right now that we didn't have before. So let's keep that attention and let's move forward. So we're going to discuss that after I want to hear from Greg. We'll let the public tell us what they want us to hear, and then the 5 of us will discuss what we think should be the path forward as far as the structure of the group that needs to take this to the next step. So Greg, thank you for coming.
Yes, so thank you, Jason, and I echo a lot of Jason's remarks. As a superintendent, I think it's really important to thank all of the people who put a tremendous amount of effort and time into this project. Although it did not pass at the ballot or at town meeting, I also want to thank the voters who did show up and did vote and use their voice, and I do appreciate that. I don't think for the community, a solution where there are people who lose and win is healthy for the town in the short term and the long term. I think we need to identify the problem, which I think we're fairly clear about, identify potential solutions where people can support 2/3, and then move a project forward that we all feel is in the best interest of the town, not only in the short term, but the long term. And just also recognize the moment we're in. I think if you look back on history, many years from now, I think the moment we're in is very unique. And I think every project and timing of the project has a context and appropriate time. I think this project wasn't the right time for this community. And I'm committed to working with the Neary Building Committee, the school committee, and identifying solutions that the town can get behind.
Thank you. So before I open it up to see, we've got a big group here tonight, so this is great. And that we're going to let people comment that we take public comment for our agenda items. I just don't want things to be repeated. So if we could let people say, and if you agree with it, then there's no need to ditto that, because we got still lots to do tonight with our meeting, and we need to discuss among the 5 of us what we think the right path forward as far as the structure needed to decide where we're going to end up with the Neary school issue. So Anybody on the select board want to say anything briefly before we listen to the public? We'll have plenty of time to talk amongst ourselves once we hear. Al?
Yeah, so first, I want to recognize the efforts that the building committee put in. I know what it's like to lose a town election. I've done it a few times. And I know what it's like to go down in flames on the floor at town meeting, because I've done that as well. And, even if I disagree with the result, I can appreciate the effort of volunteers. The vote was clear. From my perspective, I think we need a new direction. My suggestion would be that we form a new group that would essentially be the pre-K to 8 student housing committee, or whatever you want to call it, and that they should look at the available options, including a 3-school option. I think we have to have a detailed and credible review of that as an option. I think that whatever group we form, it must have a significant participation by folks that voted no, because otherwise we'll never get to yes. I would recommend a 30-day cooling off period, to use a labor term, because I know that people are still hot under the collar on this. And I don't think we should be making a decision tonight. I think we should reflect a little further and think a little further about what it is we want.
So Al, I don't want to cut you off. You're going to have your chance to be specific. I just thought we'd hear from the people here first and see
I'm
kind of
cut
what
off
the
again.
temperature is, and then we'll go back to us and see what we want to do, whether we want to do the 30-day cooling off or whether we want to try to figure out what to do tonight. So is there anybody here that would like to speak? And please introduce yourself.
Yep. Okay, this thing can't come out. Joanne Pearson, 101 Newton Street. First of all, I'd like Kathy, you to stop cutting off Al all the time when he has something to say.
Ms.
I
Pearson,
would
this is
greatly
a select board
appreciate
meeting.
this.
I'm the
Mhm.
chair. I'm running the
That's
meeting.
great.
So if you want to talk about.
I am
path
talking about
forward,
saying,
that's
what I would like to say is that, and Jason, I'd also like to address this to you. One of my issues is, and this includes the fire safety building, I think there's, and you've served as head of both the committees, that these buildings in general are over the top. And I think with all the other expenses that we have in this town that we're facing, we just heard about the catch basins, that I do think there needs to be a new committee. I appreciate all the work that your committee did and that you did. But I think we also have to look from the perspective of how grandiose do these buildings have to be to perform their functions. Thank you.
Hi, next. Hi, Mary Tinty, 2 General Henry Knox Road. I first want to thank the committee, select board, for opening this dialogue tonight, because I think it's critical. I did watch the video of the committee's meeting, and I really appreciate, and I want to acknowledge too, the absolute humility with which that was the tone of that conversation. That is echoed here as well. And when you said tonight, I just want everybody to breathe, my shoulders dropped, and I'm grateful for that. And I think we should continue to do that. What I want to say now too is that this town, without a doubt, has supported education for decades. And my generation is grateful for that. And I acknowledge that. I have a 2nd grader currently at the Woodward School. Had this plan moved forward, she would not have ever set foot in the new Neary. She would have been part of the squish in the temporary transition for construction, which we were in favor of for all of the possible benefits that would come later on. I understand that this vote was decisive and definitive. I hear that loud and clear. But I just want to offer up my personal opinion about the fact that this committee not only dedicated time, but they learned
volumes of information along the way. There is a body of research out there that exists with them. I very strongly believe that they should be part of wherever this conversation goes moving forward. They should not be the only voice, because the alternative needs to also be explored. I want to say that I was in favor of this project. I can speak to anyone here who would like to learn more about why when I'm off the mic. I'm happy to share it publicly, but I don't want to take the time for that now. What I do want to say is that that project need not be the be all and end all of where we move forward and how we move forward. There are other ways. But in thinking and speaking tonight from the perspective of a second grade parent, I want us to move forward. And I want to impress upon us that that should happen with care, but should also happen with some urgency, because parents and children right now in that demographic are in limbo. We are concerned about what the education of our kids is going to look like in a substandard building that is getting worse. And we're concerned about what the interim is going to offer if this conversation goes longer than it really should. So I want to thank everyone again. I want us, however we move forward, I want to make sure we're all doing so, keeping the educational standards of excellence in this town that many of the people in this room fought and paid for decades. I want to keep those to the best of our ability, because my child deserves those too, without compromise. And whatever this configuration winds up being, I do hope that, again, it can move forward with some speed and with some good collaboration from both sides to get consensus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Go ahead.
Good evening, James Eastland, 31 Wildwood. I'd like to thank a lot of the comments you've made this evening. I appreciate a lot of them, and I appreciate all the history that you and the NBC team, the knowledge that you're bringing to where we are going forward. And I think while I encourage a new charter for the NBC or whatever new name it may be called, I think I really appreciate that you guys are going to bring, many of the committee are going to bring forward a lot of information on what you found. In the discussions on promoting yes and saying why no has issues, there were a lot of topics brought up that said, well, if we did no, then we would have to do this. Now the no vote has painted us into that corner. We don't have the time. Neary is a ticking time bomb. We probably don't have the 3 years that it would take to get the new funding before we're going to have to dump a lot of money into Neary to keep it working for that time, or for the couple of years after that, after we got the funding 3 years from now. So I think the no vote has painted us into a corner. The good news is we've already identified a lot of the challenges before us. We've talked about, well, if you would have to do this, now it's time to do that. I think that if we look at Neary as something that needs to be closed down without doing what we were described as very expensive major renovations, we want to try to avoid those. We want to keep Neary alive for the 2 to 3 years it takes to upgrade the other 3 buildings, modify them as needed to make use of that space, implement things that will allow us to separate 5th graders or 5th and 6th graders from 7th and 8th. People talked about putting in a Southborough operated bus schedule so that we could separate the middle school bus riders from the high school bus riders. Many of these things were talked about in all of the lead up to the vote. And I think we now have that 2 to 3 years before it's going to get very expensive to stay at Neary to evolve into getting our children into the other 3 buildings. So,
Jason, before you go, so you started saying we may need a new charter. Can you be specific as far as what you would want in a new charter?
yes, me personally, I would like to see no new major buildings. I would like to make use of the 3 buildings, but I'll leave that to the discussion coming up. And I think we talked about letting the town have some options and make a decision, although I'll come back to, we're on a timeline, we're on the clock. That decision needs to be made fairly quickly so that we can get a budget going with whatever direction that is. I think you talked about the new charter, as it were, needs to have a scope. And so when the town looks at what budget is available and wouldn't put us over the top, I think, Al, thank you for doing the analysis on the debt service issues. We have now the new issue with the drainage culverts. The town needs to look at what are the expenditures coming up, what can we afford? And part of the charter to the committee should be, what is your target dollar range? Is that 10 million, 20 million? You know, I think there's a lot that we can do for our 3 schools for something in that kind of a budget, something that's affordable to the town, but wouldn't require us to get a matching contribution from the Massachusetts. So again, I thank you for suggesting that going forward, we size the project and that the charter should include that. Thank you for the
Thank you,
question.
Mr. Eastland. So Vanessa, you got 3. You can bring up Kelly Conklin, Kristen, Lavon, and Louise. So where they're coming over, Betsy, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Hold on just a second. Was that, when was that? Kelly, Kelly, hold on just a second. We're going to do one more in person here, then we'll get to the 3 on the Zoom. Go
Okay,
ahead,
thank
Betsy.
you.
Hi, Betsy Rosenblum, 5 Strawberry Hill Road. I'm holding a pad like I have an organized thing to say. And actually I didn't, because I spent last night and all day today trying to think about a nice way to say what I have to say, because I think of some of you like family. So first of all, a blanket thank you to everybody. I've been a volunteer, not to the extent that some of you were volunteers, but I've done it enough to know. And it's a thankless task, but I think it's time to retire the Neary Building Committee. I would urge the select board to disband them or let their charter, whatever the appropriate thing. I'm not an educator. I have no expertise. I was trained, however, as an advocate, and I spent my professional career in the law. I was on the no side of this, and I've talked to a lot of people who are on the no side. And I just don't think, given all the water under the bridge, that the Neary Building Committee as currently constituted are the people to get us to the new solution. And I think if we continue with the same committee, it's going to further make it more difficult to get to yes.
So what would you, so on a positive note, what would you propose to do?
I've talked to 2 of the members of the select board who reached out to me. I have to say, I'm very nervous at the thought of the current Neary Building Committee meeting over the summer while the rest of us are on vacation or whatnot, and someone coming up with a plan to have another town meeting in September, whatever 4 months is. I think that's not well advised. And I say this with all due understanding. I've been the chair of a committee. The expertise is there. I understand that. But if you want to get to yes, there are 2/3 of the vote that you need to turn around. And I think the number one way to do that is to stop calling it the Neary Building Committee. We have a school issue, but as soon as you constitute a Neary Building Committee, then you're probably going to end up where we ended up, which is building a new Neary or doing something that may not be the solution that's favored by 2/3 of the town. So along with what Mr. Hamilton started to say and didn't finish, a K-8 committee, because that's really where we're at, is studying what we're going to do with the schools for the future and having a broader name for your charter, I think is the only way that all the taxpayers are going to know that you really looked at everything, that you didn't just look at Neary. Because what you heard from a lot of the no camp was, let's look at our existing, you could tear down Neary, let's look at the existing schools. And I'm saying maybe that's not feasible, but I don't think the advocates for this project, well, we know they didn't prove their case. And as a trained advocate, I think we just need to go down some avenues that don't include Neary to get to the place where people are comfortable that what you propose next is the best solution. And I think you need a lot of fresh faces and fresh voices. And I think, again, Mr. Hamilton is correct. You need to bring in more of the no people. Because having the yes people meet again over the summer is not going to help you in any way with the no people. I mean, that seems pretty obvious to me. I don't know why that's not obvious to more people, but it's pretty obvious to me. So it needs to be a committee, and you need to bring in educators who are not the regular school board people. When I talk to people at the polls and after town meeting, I talked to people who said they were really undecided before they walked into the meeting. I talked to a couple who told me that they were leaning yes before town meeting, and they ended up voting no at town meeting. And I said, would you mind telling me, what changed your mind? Was it my brilliant commentary at the mic? No, it was not. It was an educator from the town who stood up, I don't know her name, a lady in an orange or apricot sweater, you may remember her, who took issue. She was an educator of many decades of experience, and she was not for the project. And as I continued to talk to people, I've been doing mostly listening, which is unusual for me, but listening to people, the way to go is not with the current committee. I think people need to feel that other people are brought in. No people need to be brought in. And we need to bring in people
Did you
who,
participate in the NBC meeting on Thursday? Did you listen in?
I haven't had no, I'm aware that there was a meeting and I didn't have a chance to listen to it. No, sorry.
So the sentiment you just expressed, which is clearly there needs to be people brought into the process that did not support the project, was absolutely expressed that night. So
Great.
and
Good to
that-
know. Good to know.
Okay.
And this is in no way meant to demean anyone who was in the process. I can't state that strongly enough. I don't want to delay other people from commenting by going into how strongly I feel that I don't want to offend anybody. But I just feel from an advocacy point of view, we are not doing ourselves any favor to have the current people stay and to give the 2/3 who said no faith that every stone was unturned and all the alternatives were considered.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask
Okay.
a follow-up question? That's it. So, for what you were suggesting of another committee that would look further into all options now. I mean, one issue I see is that to really understand the cost of a lot of the different options, you would need to spend some money to cost out those options, right? With some degree of certainty. And that does require some expertise. So how would you support another, like a town meeting appropriation to fund this committee so it have the resources to really scope out, what would be involved in moving grades from Neary to other existing schools and things like that?
I think you need to sit down and figure out what we already know and what we don't know. I don't think it would cost a whole lot of money for the best and brightest minds in Southborough to sit down and say, so Mary spoke very eloquently to the institutional knowledge that is already here. We were told that the Neary Building Committee people studied 12 different options, not just the proposal that got put before the voters. So presumably, there is a ton of institutional knowledge on a variety of things. Let's sit down and map out what we know before we go to town meeting to ask for money. And I assume we'll have a special in the fall, September, October. If we need $100,000 then, well, you can ask for it then.
All right, we got a few people lined up here. So
Okay, thank you for your time. I didn't mean to go so long.
Is Kelly Conklin still here? Kelly Conklin, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Kelly Conklin, 17 Sadie Hut. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to everyone who's been participating in this process, and I really appreciate listening to Jason at the beginning of this meeting. And I just wanted to address something the last speaker had said. I just wanted to point out that this was never called the new Neary Building Committee. It was just the Neary Building Committee because they were tasked with creating a proposal to address the needs of that current building. Their work obviously led them down a certain path, but based on the findings from our town meeting and our vote, I think Jason and the committee is absolutely right by saying we need to ask this question of where do we want to go? How do we want to handle this? I agree with James earlier, and he said that our vote has painted us into this corner that we don't necessarily want to be in because now, you know, we're in a time crunch and we don't have consensus. I also agree with Al in saying that we do need to expand the current committee. However, I don't think we throw the baby out with the bathwater here. There is a ton of expertise, and I think it would be a waste of everyone's time and money to just forego all of that knowledge. I do think it's critical to have a variety of opinions, and I would love for people who oppose to this project to join these committees and attend these meetings. And the people who are most vocal should be the ones I hope to step up because it seems like they are leaders in the community. And of course, the goal is to pass something. I don't think any person that voted yes on this project was necessarily married to, we need this particular building and it needs to look like this. I think we just need a solution. That being said, I really want to caution this idea that consolidating is the best option. Just because there's enough square footage in our other schools on paper doesn't mean it's usable, educationally appropriate, or meets standards. For example, gymnasiums, storage closets, hallways, they all count towards square footage, but they aren't necessarily classroom ready spaces. I am a middle school educator, and I think it's extremely important that if we're going to ask educators to weigh in on this, it needs to be educators that have taught since the pandemic, because since the pandemic, everything in education has changed. Everything. And I truly, and it's not to disrespect educators who are retired and doing other things, but everything has changed from the way students are presenting to how teachers are teaching. These older buildings weren't designed in a way that makes sense for how education now happens. You know, we have specialized spaces, small group rooms, special education spaces, OT, PT rooms, STEM labs, intervention spaces. Just because we have the square footage doesn't mean that we are properly serving students with 504s and IEPs. Equity and inclusion, which is something that Southborough seems to have a strong history of supporting and wanting to maintain, that requires space for differentiated instruction. It requires quiet areas for neurodiverse learners. We cannot just put people in a building. Trust me, if you put 100 fifth graders in a gymnasium and try to teach them something, it's probably not going to go as well as we had hoped. So I wanted to add that. And I mean, of course, I think we need to pivot into what's next. I don't necessarily feel that a 30-day cooling off period is necessarily helpful because we have this 100, I believe it was 120 days to respond to something. I don't know if that is the right move, but again, that is my opinion and my opinion alone. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Next is Kristen LeVolt.
Hi, thank you, Kathy. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I'll keep this quick. I won't repeat anything already said other than one, I completely agree with Andrew's suggestion at the beginning of the discussion about obviously the need for a tighter model, because that absolutely definitely led to confusion in the last couple of weeks of the discussion. I also agree with the statement made that we are, this was just a hard time for this decision to be made. And I love the collective breath. I don't know that we need to wait 30 days, but I love that advice. I just add something to it for everyone. We're in our nice little bubble to a degree in Southborough, but we need to take like a look around, and I just wish in this discussion we could talk a little bit more about the fact that we're facing an incredibly uncertain economy, political future for our country. And that scares a lot of people for different reasons. It's not just scary like, oh, what's just even going to happen with the economy, right? It goes beyond that. So I think as we're taking our breath and dealing with each other, like, yes, we need to have empathy for the kids. We need to have the empathy for all of our students who may require some additional help, but we also have to have empathy for all of the people who will be infected in different ways in today's world. I'll stop there with two requests to the select board for your conversation, because I don't think this is appropriate necessarily for the committee that you're going to assign, but two things that came up during the discussions and in town meeting that I think somebody has to, I don't know who comes up with an answer for, but one, this project was touted as helping property values, but we kind of got to dissect our persona. Sorry, Alexa, stop. Sorry. We've got to dissect our different personas in town, because a really poignant comment made was, well, what about the property values on the south side of town when you're closing our school? As someone who lives like a mile from the school, I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, that was the selling. That's why I bought our house, because we had Finn right there. So we need to understand that more, because there's an impact there to property values. And then the second thing is, if you could look at, a lot of people proposed, well, we have programs for those that are hitting their threshold of, what they can afford, where we really need to scrutinize, understanding there's always going to be tax increases. We get that, but we need to scrutinize them more, as some people, including myself, are hitting their threshold. Everyone on this call who lives in town has a threshold. You may not be there yet, but where we talk about there's programs for people to get help, there's programs for the elderly to, get some sort of assistance, but all of that would be funded by our taxpayers. So if that's going to be kind of one of the responses put forward in terms of how we're going to deal with this, I think we all collectively need to understand, what does that mean? Like, what are the programs available? Who would be eligible? What percentage of town that is? What will that mean to the tax rates for other citizens? So there's just, we found sides of the coin we hadn't looked at, and I just hope they get considered in the next round. Thank you.
So Kristen, I had a little trouble understanding everything. I just want to go to this last point you were making. So are you suggesting that, we've already got several programs in place to help either seniors or people who need help otherwise. Are you suggesting that we need to add to those programs?
No.
I'm not, yeah?
Nope. So this was a response, Kathy, I don't know if you do social media, but on the SOBO page, right? When the debate was going back and forth, people said, well, those who are scared about taxes going up, I'm paraphrasing, there's programs available. But beyond that, I don't think there's probably a great deal of knowledge about the programs. But also, if we were to institute like a large tax increase, and we're saying, well, this is something we can fall back on for those that are concerned about being priced out of town, what does that look like? Like, we can say that.
So you just
really,
want us to make sure people know about the programs that exist.
Well, and we understand the financial impact. If we're saying this is how we're going to help our neighbors who can't take on significant, increased tax for the school, we're saying these programs exist, but that has an implication financially to the rest of the town. that money, you know, like we have to subsidize that. So how many people are we suggesting would need to take advantage of that?
Okay, that's a true statement, what you just said. That's important. And we're not looking for outside money. It's going to shift from one to the other. Marguerite has been working on a very nice detailed description of all the programs we have to make sure that people in town have it all in one place. So that is something that is forthcoming, Marguerite.
Parenthetically, call the assessor's office. They can help you out.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kristen. Tori's?
Yes. This is Tori Gamble. Sorry, it's just showing my first name. I'm happy to go on video if you would like that, but my name's Tori Gamble and I'm from 6 Metcalf Lane. And I am the parent of young children, but I'm just actually want to speak to the exact question Jason asked about process and not speak to sides, but just give a suggestion. So I'm someone that I work in consulting. I kind of have this like problem solving mindset. And I think what would be great is actually in the next month or two to really outline from all sides the fact basis that everyone's working off of and their assumptions from all sides. And then really around the key question is, and we can word it, and this I think would be the mandate for this new committee, I'd call it like Neary diagnosis or diagnostic, and say, can we continue with Neary, you know, as a building, and what would it take? And then we outline the different assumptions, because I think what happened is some people were working off different facts and different assumptions, and that's fine. Let's outline those and then see where there's gaps in information. And that group, I think, could be the Neary committee, because they bring so much knowledge, but also additional people, so knows, maybe more parents, so a larger group, but that we really like workshop. And the mandate is to kind of not actually give an answer, but to lay out the facts. And I know the Neary committee has done that, but as Jason pointed out, some of the facts were questioned, I think, a month leading up, and that led to uncertainty, I think, for a lot of voters. So if we can go back and answer that uncertainty, and then answer that question about Neary, I think is what I'm hearing from the community, because some say put a Band-Aid on it, as quote unquote, some say, you know, we can't do that. So let's outline that. And I think if we can answer those facts and give information, we then know what to do. We'll have a better sense of then what to do next. I think everyone's jumping to like other things, but to me, that's the question that the community even, you know, doesn't have the same facts on. So that's just my thoughts on like the process specifically. Thank you.
Thank you. So Vanessa, we've got two more with their hands up. So Jenna, when you come over, you're next. So Jenna, you're muted. So Karina, are you here? So Karina, you're also muted. There you go.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Corina Ionitz. I'm on 22 Maple Crest Drive, and I would like to say a brief and very strong thank you to the Neary Building Committee for all the work and the volunteering they have done. I have listened to a recording of their meeting that happened yesterday, or the last meeting that they had. And I am a parent of a kindergartner and the 5th grade.
So Karina, you're muted again. What, Vanessa?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I would like to really suggest to the committee not to dismantle the current Neary Building Committee, because I think they have built expertise in doing what they have done for the past 3 years, starting fresh. I think will cost the town money and time that we don't have. I think it's pretty clear that the Neary building needs to be addressed. The condition of the Neary building needs to be addressed somehow. And if you lose this committee that has volunteered so many hours, you will lose their expertise. Just putting up the paperwork and maybe reapplying or using or doing a better explanation of why this decision was put forward, it's only gonna harm the town, the taxpayers' money, and so on. For the Neary Building Committee, I have talked with a bunch of neighbors in my neighborhood, and I think a lot of parents were not aware of the whole situation that's been happening. I have seen the emails, but not everybody was like really reading all the details and all of that. I think it would really help if, as you were mentioning in the meeting that you had, if you could explain why this option that was put forward to the town to be voted on was the best out of all possible options. Every person that I talked that had kids in the school system, they were like, oh, but it's going to be a tax increase. I think that was not fair towards this option to associate the building a new, like the option of we're suggesting that you should build a new building on the Neary site versus anything else. It was not clear that this really is a dire situation that needs a solution, and this is the best solution we came up with after analyzing so many things. Talking with so many parents that were like confused about the whole thing. And I was bringing up like, why would you do this? Or why do you vote no? Or why are you confused? And talking and looking at the data, everybody in the end turned the other way around. So I think it's just a matter of making this I don't know, proposal more visible to more people in town. I don't know how that is. For me, it was by word of mouth. But I think once you get more people aware of the situation, you will get a better response. And I really want to emphasize that I don't think you should cool off. I know it's a very dire momentum, but I don't think you should cool off because you will lose all the people that became aware and woke up and started to like look into the data and read about it and analyze the situation and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I was very nervous. I'm sorry.
No, you did good. You did great. Jenna, you still look like you're muted. Okay, so let's go. So Jenna, if you can come unmuted, we'll get back to you. So Mark?
Mark Davis, 13 Schuyler. I'm a member of the Neary Building Committee. A long time ago, when my hair wasn't white, we had a decision in this town what to do with the high school. We had a vote for a new school. Our partners in Northborough had a resounding no vote for a new school. We had to find a way to get to yes in a very short period of time. We then had a third group, which came forward and had an alternate proposal. They wanted their own high school in Southborough. Several months later, we had the largest town meeting, larger than the one we had a couple weeks ago. And we had a second vote. We compromised. We decided that the best approach was to do an add renovate to the high school. Within a week or two, we had a vote in Northborough. Add renovate. We had a project. Both towns supported it at the ballot. So the idea of coming back and having a second town meeting is something this town has done in the past. And we found a way to compromise and get to a yes vote. I have always been a proponent while serving on this committee. I never lost sight of the fact that we're doing this for our children. That we have to find a solution that benefits the education of our children. I can go down the list of safety, health, education benefits, sustainability, cost. But the bottom line is we need to find a solution for the benefit of our kids. I believe that we need to act, and it takes a village to come to a decision. And we've got time to make the right decision, whatever it is. I'd like to place my name to continue serving on whatever committee comes up on July 1st, with the sheer aim that I think whomever serves on that committee is all part of the same village. And I think we can find a way to get to yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? So, Eric, and then we'll pull over. Eric, go ahead.
Okay. So Eric Laser, 9 Scholar Drive. I just have one specific quick point. As we kick off this new process, I think in the spirit of defining clearly assumptions is to have some level of professional opinion on what is the risk around Neary, because we're hearing it's going to be condemned next year, and I'm using some hyperbole here, but what is the actual lifespan of that school? So we have very clear, is it 3 years, 5 years, to help us guide the decisions, because everybody has it in their own mind what we think that is. I'd love to hear from a professional engineer or structural engineer, people who can assess danger in buildings, to come up with a formal opinion. And as far as the money, I mean, look, we just spent 122 grand on a railing. I find it hard to believe we couldn't find some money to put towards this, which is imminently much more important. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jenna, we think we can hear you now.
Hi, my name is Jenna Lynn. I'm at 7 Leeds Way here in Southborough. I apologize about the technical issues I was having. I'm a mother to 4 children. I have kids 2, 4, 8, and 10. 2 of which are in the Southborough schools right now, enjoying, the lovely education that our town offers. One student does go to Neary, and, I do often hear of the incidents at school and the leaky roof and the falling tiles and such. And, I'm obviously very passionate about this. I think the biggest thing, a lot of people have made a lot of excellent points tonight, just to add to that, I'd like to see the town collectively kind of let go of this, this kind of yes and no side. At this point, we have to come together. I'm willing to do that, despite being a yes voter. We just have to come together for the kids. It doesn't need to be about that any longer. I think I want to say what everybody else did is, thank you to Jason and the committee for doing 3 years of extensive work on this project. And he said everything very eloquently tonight, that, it's not about pushing the agenda of New Neary any longer. It's about listening to the community, coming together and to explore ideas, because ultimately we have to do something for the children, right? They need action. The school, I don't agree with taking 30 days as a breather. I think honestly, what I've seen in all this is that the adults in this town, I don't mean any disrespect, but, some of us could take a lesson in regulating our emotions. And, we don't have time to sit on this any longer, that's my point. Like I said, I'm on the yes side, but, we just need to let it go. We need action. So what I would like to see happen, honestly, I think a lot of the voters that voted no, they said they wanted to see a plan for consolidation. I don't know how quickly that the numbers could be come up with, but I would like to see personally a new build versus a plan for consolidation, and if that's feasible and what those costs look like. I'd like to see those two head to head. I think Jason had said that, hopefully someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that some ideas could be presented to the town simultaneously. I think the town wants to feel like they have options. They want to feel like they're in control. I don't want to let go of the idea of a new build, and I'm not willing to let that idea go personally, but I would like to see those two options head to head. And I'd like to stress that it shouldn't be just about cost here. I feel like cost is driving a lot of this for people. These are children. They don't have a voice. The adults here are their voice, and it needs to, of course, the money matters, but we have to consider the short-term, the long-term implications, and consolidating the schools. I personally would doubt that that wouldn't compromise educational quality in some way. And, in Southborough, that's what we stand behind. So I'd like to see that continue. But again, I'd like to see those two kind of mapped out head to head so we can really see, what our options are. And again, I'd like to see this done in an urgent, fashion. I don't think we should, when that person said something about, the committee doing these things over the summer while they're away on vacation, I think that just speaks to the fact that, that, like I said, they're working tirelessly on this while we're off on vacation. It's like, we need to get this done. We need to move faster. It does need to be done with a sense of urgency. That's all I want to say here. Again, thank you to the NBC.
Thank you, Jenna. Patty?
I'm going to stand a little further back because this microphone seems really loud. Patricia Burns Fiore, 10 Winter Street. In regard to the charge for Neary, on the website, and maybe that's just not updated, but the charter for the Neary Building Committee says, quote, renovations or new construction of the existing Neary school site. So yes, moving forward, if you were to examine other options, you would need to change that charge so that people that are prejudiced toward that one solution can be open-minded. I want to just clarify a couple of things. And I do really appreciate all the work of the committee. Trust me, having volunteered on some things and, not feeling overly appreciated at times, it's important to acknowledge all the work that went into the process. I think we had, as Al said, 2 overwhelming votes no on this project. That was a democratic decision. Those votes were serious and they need to be taken serious. When you talk about moving forward, there is the way I understand this, there's a 120-day window to get 2 yes votes to the MSBA, or this project is dead and has to be started over. Whatever that starting over means, the 120 days, the only option is to say yes on a special town meeting and yes on a ballot. Is that correct?
It is, but the town has the option to request an extension on the 120 days as well.
Okay, so whatever that time period being, 100.
You're right. You're basically right about the
Right.
fact, so keep going.
So I reject the premise that you are moving toward that, because that tells me you are moving only forward with this project, the way it is written, the way it is proposed, the way it is cited on that site. There can be no changes to that. That is what I've heard all along. That is not what the voters of this community.
Patty, I don't
wanted.
understand what you're talking about. We haven't agreed to do anything.
Because as Mark Davis just said, well, to get a yes vote, I listened to that entire meeting last Thursday. What I heard, maybe I missed something, what I heard was we got a no vote because enough people didn't vote. Or if we have more meetings and more public forums and more votes, we will get those people to vote yes.
I don't know, with all due respect, I don't know how you heard that. What I thought we were trying to do very hard, and Jason certainly set the tone, is to basically say, we've got to look at this all again. And we talked about, we would need to look at all possible permutations. Of those 12 that we looked at before, there was a couple that just didn't make sense. So whatever they are, 4, 5, 6 they are. So we spent time talking about that. We talked about a survey to go to the town to try to figure out whether the site was the right
I'd be
place.
happy to, at a later time.
Okay, but there's just,
give
I just
you a
don't think
time
we
slot
should.
Of that meeting where those comments were made.
All right, so I respect your opinion, but that's not what we meant to do. And I think if you go back and listen to the other things said, we absolutely said we need to look at other choices, cost them out, so you've got apples to apples comparison, whether it's a C, D, and E, whatever. Do we need to do a survey to figure out whether the site is the problem? Is it a problem, is it not? So that's what we were trying to do. So I'm not sure. So there is no agreement in the NBC to go forward simply with the same project within this 120 days. So that's not correct. The only
So
meeting
why-
we had
so
since.
then
that-
why are we not tonight ending that process with the MSBA and say this project as written is not moving forward?
Because we don't have to do it yet, so why would you do it yet? And this is just totally, hear me out, look at me. Hear me out. What if we costed the projects out and every single project that we could come up with, including moving fifth grade to Trotter and making segregating fifth grade, and then doing whatever you gotta do to Finn to make sure that the one grade was counted. What if every one of those with no state support cost more than the project? Then what would, so I just don't, there's just no reason to kill it yet, but we are going to look at, I assume that there is going to be a look at every other possible project and be able to compare and provide costs so that people can make an informed decision. But at this point, I don't see why you'd kill something until you have to kill it. Why not leave it out there off to the side until the time period passes where you can't do that anymore?
Do I have your assurance as chair of the select board that the select board will not be putting forth another special town meeting to vote on this within the time period of the MSBA requirement or in any extension?
Well, not to give you a smart answer, it's not my decision, it's a decision of 5 people, but I am not aware of anybody that thinks that that is the right way to go at this point. It has not been discussed. So I'm not in favor of that. I'm in favor of a different process that we're going to try to start talking about how to do tonight to figure out what to do to get to a 2/3 vote, whatever that project may be.
My concern regarding the options that you mentioned, the 12 options, and I've, believe it or not, read that whole report. And the 12 options actually never considered a couple of things, a couple of options.
Correct, it didn't.
Everything in those 12 options was a renovation addition or a new build. And part of what we have been trying to say is that that's not necessary. There are other options that aren't going to cost that kind of money. And whether you think that, you know, the people going against the Neary project had one vision of the finances, that's not true. Everybody had their own opinion of what were the problems with it. I mean, excuse me, one person was appalled that we were just going to basically throw it out of school that was designed for the youngest kids and then renovate another school to make it work for the youngest kids.
So I
there's
want to
some
hear what you've got to say, but we're trying tonight to figure out what the process may be to go forward to get to the right solution. And you're right, moving fifth grade to Trotter was not one of the 12 because the predecessor committee had already done that research and the school committee had voted not to support that permutation. But it doesn't mean that's not coming back. Obviously, that was the main thrust of the no vote, I think, is that choice as far as using Trotter and using Finn. So again, I'm one person. I can't imagine that's not going to be a very active consideration once we figure out how to do this. We're just trying to figure tonight how to get this going forward again, because there does have to be a solution to the state of Neary at some point before too much longer passes.
I think we already know our answer to the state. We don't know the answer to this community and how to move forward.
We agree.
That's two separate things. I think that we as voters deserve to have our vote heard. And that vote was to say no to the state on the project as presented. Now, if you want to talk to people, I could give you names. I could give you 1,300 names of people that have ideas on how to move forward without that project. That would be great to have open that discussion. If we can get a non-prejudicial committee, not directed just toward getting that one yes answer, but to examining all the potential ideas that it's going to work for everybody in this town. And to hear people say that anybody that voted no on this project does not care about the education of children is hurtful and degrading. I've lived in this town a long time, and that's not fair. Everyone here cares about the education of children. We need to move forward in the best direction for everybody.
Yep, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so, Bonnie. Okay, so bring her. Bonnie, we got one in front of you. So hold on a second. So Kamali, I think.
Yes, hi,
Kamali,
good.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Kamali O'Mealy from 8 Maple Crest Drive. I'd just like to, around the process, I think that having a broader name or title would be a good beginning. And I feel like I heard from the current chair, Jason, that that's totally in line with something that the current Neary Building Committee members don't have an issue with. I do think also that it would be a great value to all of us to continue to have their knowledge if they so choose to, you know, apply or request to be on the forum or the committee that you create. I think we would be lucky as a town to have them want to continue. And then I also do suggest that we open it or that the select board open it to more individuals to participate and add their views and their skill sets, right? So your skill sets and your time, that would be helpful. And in their opening statement, you know, that's exactly what I heard from Jason as a representative of the current committee as being very open to. There was a speaker that spoke earlier that brought up some really good points as well, that having some insight and contributors that are teaching since, you know, 2020 until now, because there's definitely a difference that's happening in the classrooms in terms of the style of teaching as well as the makeup of the classroom. And a lot of our learners that have the most need have the most need are not going to be. We want them to be served well and supported well, and that's different than how we had classrooms set up, you know, a decade ago or more. So if you could consider those things in the process, I think that would be great. And at this, thank everyone for all of their inputs tonight. I also agree, I think it was Ms. Conklin that said the humility and the grace at which the current team has kind of reflected and even continue to want to serve this community on is admirable to me. And I'm looking forward to some of the very smart and motivated voices that have shared over the last 2 months or so to put their hat in the ring to also contribute. I think that would be a value add for our neighborhood. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kamali. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Parul from 4 Winter Street. Just have so many Maple Crest Drive speakers. I want to say that I have the privilege of living in Southborough because I come from India, and we studied in a school from kindergarten to 10th grade, all students in one class, in one school. That has not prevented me from leading the quality control department here at Estella's in Westboro. So education, yes, it matters, but your teachers matter more. While in Children's Hospital, I also heard that Northborough schools pay so poorly to their substitute teachers that I think we should devote more money to the teachers than we do to buildings. Really, that is what your children really need, good teachers. The second point I have is we have 3,000 taxpayers here, And I'd like to know what proportion of them voted. Because if you have already 2/3 of them voting, then it might be just parents versus non-parents.
15% voted on Saturday and 26% voted on Tuesday.
Normally, how many do they vote for, like regular elections?
So for town elections, it's usually pretty small. Normal town meetings, it's really small. For a national election, we've got what, 80% or so? Yeah. So it depends on whether it's a local election or national election.
Yeah, and then what I fear is we're going to have Southborough segregating the rich from the not so rich, because if your tax rates go that high, people will not opt to come here. The only reason we are here is because this is a commuter location. We don't have children. We were living in Northborough and we are living in Southborough. We have not voted against the children's options, whether it was Algonquins, turf, or I don't know, so many things. We see parents come in to vote just for the school and then walk away. So they are very focused on what they want for their children, but not for the rest of the community. I think that has to stop, because I think even now the voters that came, they came for Neary School. If it had been another project, which was less less expensive, I've seen even smaller amounts getting turned down, just a culvert or something like that. But 100 million was a bit over the top. And this is not my saying, it was one of the old ladies I met at the town hall. And I saw people on crutches coming to vote. So they felt strongly that this is something they have to do to protect themselves. I don't think the parents should put them in that state. Some of us can afford to leave this town, others cannot. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie, go ahead.
Bonnie Faniff, 179 Middle Road. This is probably the first time in the 47 years that I've lived in town that we've had a topic that's divided this community. And that's regretful. I think we need to, I agree with Jason and Superintendent Martineau, that we have to find a way to move forward. And I would like to think the first way of doing that would be if the superintendent could put a capital plan together that he may present, because you'll be starting the budget process soon, so that we have an idea of what the individual schools need today as far as budget for the future of the April town meeting, whenever we have that. And an appropriate person to do that would be the superintendent. If Neary needs maintenance that needs to be done today for safety reasons, that should be put to paper and pen. But being divided is not going to move us forward. I was a former member of the Regional School Committee. I'm on the ADA committee. I served as select board for almost 15 years. And I closed out 4 of your schools. They weren't easy to close out. We had subcontractor liens on Woodward 2 weeks before it opened. We were able to resolve that. We had an overage of over $1 million out in Algonquin. We're able to resolve that. We've had attorneys involved. So it's going to take work, whatever we do. And I think the yes and the no, we have to stop saying that. I think we're all a concerned group of people that have different issues within our homes, our budgets, and our children. I have 9 grandchildren, 3 graduated already from Southwest schools. I have 2 at Algonquin, I have 1 at Neary, and I have 2 at Trotter. So I'm familiar with the schools. I think I live there. That's my part-time job. But I think we need to move forward. I did bring a lot of topics to town meeting. They were concerning to me, but what I said, I never kept to myself and surprised anybody. I always provided the information to the committees, to members of the committees, to make them aware of what I was going to say. And if I used material, it was their material. And if anybody questioned my honesty or the way I interpreted something, town meeting was the floor to say I was wrong. So I think in the interest of everything, we need a budget. We need to know what the capital requests are going to be for the school committee for this year's budget. And it needs to be very public, and what Neary may require in the interim. Thank you.
All right, we've got two more in the audience, and then we're going to cut off the public comments. So go ahead. Go, guys, the microphone. Though. Yeah. Quickly, please.
Yeah, sorry. Betsy Roseman, 5 Strawberry Hill Road. So I'm not saying this is in anyone's head, but if it were proposed to bring back the proposal that failed at another town meeting and election, could it be combined with other proposals? My understanding was from the state, you have to just have that one ballot question and one warrant article.
Combined, no. What we have the ability to run by the state is if the select board, who ultimately would set any warrant, want to bring this project back again, exactly as is, they would be willing to look at other articles that would be solely funded by the town to make sure that they don't conflict, to give the town a choice. So let's just say someone wanted to bring Neary up to code as an option. You could have that as Article 2, for example, town meeting. The only requirement would be is we have the MSBA article in the language we've all seen at this point on the same warrant. The MSBA would want to see all articles, albeit they would only be participating in the initial article. So combined, no, but you could have multiple articles on the same warrant for the town to make a choice between an MSBA project and a solely Southborough funded project.
Well, that's what you meant, right? On one article, have choices.
Yeah, my
Obviously,
question
you
was
want to
if
have choices.
someone decides, whoever the decision maker is, to bring forward again within 120 days, the proposal that failed, could that special town meeting and that ballot question be coupled with other proposals for other scenarios for the schools? Because what I thought we heard, and I think you just said I was mistaken, there could be multiple proposals. One of the arguments was, why didn't we get multiple proposals at this STM in this election? Because the state building process didn't allow us. We could only have one ballot question and one proposal. And now I'm hearing we could have multiple proposals.
We could have one proposal with the state. We as a town can do whatever we want outside of the state process.
But we originally were told that we could not consider other options. I understand, not MSB, not subsidized options, but that Neary Building Committee brought to the voters this one proposal, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to characterize it. And we couldn't consider other options at the same time as voters because the state would only allow us to vote on one ballot question and one motion. But now we're saying we could move forward with non-state reimbursed projects at the same STM.
So what we said, Betsy, is we can only bring forth one project that would be funded by the MSBA. That's what we said.
Okay.
So Jason's answered your question. Yes, you could bring forward multiple projects that were town funded completely next to the MSBA funded project in A, B, C, D, or E.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Andrea Hamilton, I think is here. Andrea, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Andrea Hamilton, 119 Northborough Road. So I just want to talk very specifically about kind of the item on the agenda that you guys are talking about in terms of figuring out next steps forward for the committee itself. So I think I've followed a lot of your meetings, either in attendance or watching them after. I was at town meeting. I think I've been a pretty high information voter in this case. And I think one of the things I've heard almost universally is again, that we understand that the Neary building as it is right now is not a long-term solution. To Eric's point, how long exactly that is, I don't think we have a very clear answer on, but it's not long-term. And so we need a solution. We need a path forwards. we need to get to some sort of consensus and a vote that lets us move along. My concern is that one of the big things that I have felt in listening to these meetings, and even listening here now, is that there's a lack of public trust within the process and the committee itself. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I think that is true. And I worry that without public trust, no matter what the options are that are put forwards, you're going to have an uphill battle getting to a yes. I find myself guilty of this myself. I watched your meeting last week, and when we started talking about putting different options up, my first reaction was, well, yeah, of course, we're going to put up a bunch of options that are still trying to get me to vote for a $108 million building. And again, that's not a particularly generous interpretation of me, but I do think there is a trust problem. And I would just suggest that moving forwards with a committee in anything that looks similar to the way it is now, you're going to be running into those questions over and over again. And that's going to be a real disservice because, again, at the end of the day, we need to find common ground and find a project that moves us to yes. So I just really encourage you that whatever you decide the next steps are here, that it needs to look meaningfully different than what it has been. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Andrew. Jean?
Hi, Gene Carmelek, 29 Wildwood Drive. My request is that the town look at its existing facilities for education of our children. When I first started attending meetings, I was referred to a document, the 21-22 report. And in that report, the committee without error said that the fifth grade could be accommodated in Trotter, okay? That was in scenario 4. In scenario 3, they looked at the ability of Finn to accommodate the pre-K through second grade program. In scenario 3, they said that they had 30 classrooms and they needed 32 classrooms. When I went to a meeting, I believe it was in February of this year, it was the first time that I heard that the Northborough preschool portion of the program was leaving and going back to Northborough. So looking at that school and needing 2 classrooms to accommodate second grade, we, I believe, have the space. So my request is that before we start looking at what do we build, where do we build, that we really take a very serious look at our existing facilities. And it's not what we want to do, it's what we need to do for our children. And I feel very strongly that we really do need to look at this, not from a perspective of what it's going to cost, but what is it that we need? And what is it that the town will support? Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. So I think we've got one more. Cosman?
Hello, can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yes, we can.
All right, yeah, this is Cosmin Ionita. I'm at 22 Maple Crest Drive. I'd like to speak in favor of not disbanding the committee. I don't really agree with some points that were brought up earlier, that the no vote should lead to disbanding this committee. As we all know, turnout in town elections is not that high. This was like 2/3 no vote out of a relatively small fraction of the total voting population. So we shouldn't take that as the ultimate arbiter of, okay, we're done here, let's disband the committee. I think we should strongly consider carrying over the lessons learned by this committee and not losing the expertise that they gathered in putting all this work together. So we should use what what we have with this committee and evolve it. So yeah, so that's my 1 cent with that. And then I'd really like to emphasize, it's been brought up again and again tonight. This is not about, we have the floor space to fit all the kids in all existing structures. This is not about that. The floor space is not the only thing that matters here. As we heard time and time again, this would mean having fifth graders together with sixth graders, seventh graders, eighth graders. That is a no-go. So I would advise everybody to not think solely of the floor space. That's an easy way out. So I know it's being brought up, but we should not let that be the only thing guiding us. And I would also like to point out, if you ever had to build something brand new and modern versus you had to refurbish an old structure and or get a new car or fix an old car to modern standards, fixing old things is not cheap. And especially when we consider we're getting money from the state of Massachusetts to lower that $100 million bill to, I believe it was 70. So I would advise, don't take for granted that simply refurbishing a very old building where essentially you're going to have to bring down every single wall, that will come out cheaper than building a brand new thing. That's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Eric, you're going to end it for us.
Just a question.
Okay.
So for the superintendent, so we didn't actually get a chance to ask this question at the town meeting. When you look at the other towns in this state, and I think I did a cursory review, there's about 20 of them that have a 5 through 8. And Brookline actually has some of the best schools in the state, which are K through 8. From an education perspective, and I appreciate what we heard from our Teachers Association, what do you say to those towns that have those schools and why it doesn't work, why it wouldn't work for us? I'm not saying it's the right solution, but as a fundamental education point, why wouldn't it work for our town versus a Natick or like Belmont has a 5 through 8 is ranked number 6 or 7. Why wouldn't it work for us? I'd actually welcome to hear your expert opinion on that.
Please.
So thank you for the question. Can I just clarify 2 points that I heard earlier, and then I'll get to a response. First, I think it's important to note that the school committee does have a multi-year capital plan. As part of the budget process, it does go through that plan and speaks to each of our facilities and the 5 to 6 year plan to maintain and update those facilities in terms of capital needs. That is approved annually by the school committee. That is also reviewed by the town capital committee. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. I think there is a need to revisit that capital plan, given this, where we are today. But there is a process and there is a plan, and I'd be happy to share that with anyone who would like. In terms of what's right for a community, I think that if you look at each of the communities that you study, I think there are nuances within the communities that have made that decision. I know that many schools have a K through 8 model. They've built K through 8 schools. There's a lot of research around the continuity of those types of schools. And then if you're going to build a new school, a K-8 is one that you should consider if that's what you're looking at in terms of the design. We have looked at schools that have 5th grade included. And if you look very closely at their school design and talk to the principals and the superintendents, what you find is that they made the decisions intentionally. It wasn't because they had the space and they were just going to make kids fit. It was around design of spaces to meet the program needs of kids. And I think, we'd happy to take it offline and give you some specific examples of some of the schools that were recently built that do have 5th and 6th grade together, 7th and 8th grade, or have taken the approach with a K through 8 design. There are no schools that I'm aware of that are building new facilities that span 5 through 8.
But at a fundamental point, I just want to challenge, just make sure I'm clear. There's no educational issue why you couldn't, right? And I've also heard, again, this is mostly through the social media channels, that, oh my God, you put fifth graders with eighth graders somehow. And I've got a fifth grader and an eighth grader. I don't see them adulterating the eighth grade. That to me seems like a false argument. So again, just to be clear, it's not about the kids per se, it's about the schools may have been designed intentionally, right? And that's something that I assume we'll get into as we go through this process to say maybe it's feasible, maybe it isn't. But educationally, if it's done correctly, there's no reason why you couldn't. You just may, right? But it's not about the kids being bad for one another in that age group. It's about a different set of dynamics around the building and maybe how it's set up, whatever other parameters may be.
I think there's also a philosophical question around the developmental nature of a fifth grader compared to an eighth grader and the space that they share. I think that, again, Dr. Reinhorn spoke about the programming model that we use at the elementary, the pre-K through 5, and the continuity that we've built in curriculum resources and instruction that is a K through 5 continuum, that we have self-contained classrooms with the middle school. They have a bell schedule. So I think if we were to look at fifth grade with a middle school model, have to be some serious design considerations to make sure the design of the building supports
Sure.
the unique needs.
But other towns obviously do it, and presumably they're successful at it. Again, we'll see, I guess, how this all plays out. But just a point, there's no fundamental reason, as long as it's done correctly. Yeah.
No, I think there are some fundamental reasons, and happy to share them.
Understood.
I think this is not the place to.
Yeah, fair enough point. I talked to you offline about it. Thank you.
No, but it will be part of, I think, future discussions. Thank you, Eric. Okay, so nobody else, right? Okay, so Select Board, we've heard a variety of opinions tonight. Good input as far as what those that are here tonight think that we should look to as far as a group to continue this discussion and try to determine what project will get the required 2/3 vote. So my suggestion tonight is that we not make that decision, but we just kind of get let's just discuss it for a moment. And then when we come back on June 3rd, then we make a decision as to what we believe the majority of the Select Board thinks should be the right structure for the group that would be charged with keep moving this forward and coming to hopefully a decision that will engender the correct vote. So, yes, you can. Everybody's going to speak, so go ahead, Marguerite.
Just parenthetically, I'd like to say what I've heard tonight in terms of the general thoughts on this subject. That we've got a lot of smart people in town, that we're in a sort of us and them mode, which would be really good to get rid of so we can move on and solve this problem. We have 2 grades of students that we need to find a place for. And I wholly support keeping the knowledgeable people who are on the committee as part of the moving forward, because as you saw, you turn to Jason and you say, is this legal to do? And he knows. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of speculation without knowing. But I also support enlarging the committee and putting on no people or even yes people too, which we shouldn't be using those terms anymore either way. I support enlarging it, totally changing the charge to include things like, do we want to consolidate? Can we put a budget number out there first before we talk about making a decision? And then the other part of it is, what did I want to say? Change the name of it. Because Neary Building Committee does sound to me like we're going to do a Neary building, and I think people just have too much of a negative reaction to that because the last couple of months have been so stressful. So that's what I've heard so far this evening.
Tim, are you hanging in there?
Yeah, I'm clear. It's almost 3 a.m. my time, so I appreciate this, and I support.
So then, why don't we go to you next? What are your thoughts from what you've heard tonight as far as the pathway to move forward?
I've read a lot of the emails, or all the emails, I should say. I haven't had a chance to reply to them that we've received. Heard a lot of the comments tonight. I have a ton of notes actually, and it's a longer conversation. But my initial thoughts are I work off facts. I sent the board a spreadsheet that I started thinking about for laying this out. If I can take over the screen for a second, I'll just give a quick share of what this may look like for my quick thoughts. 1 second here. This should be it. So you should be able to see this. I have 6 options that I see on the table as of this moment. There could be more, there could be less. But I would like to see these laid out in a lot of detail with all the facts as much as we possibly can put in there. I want, what the estimated cost would be, what the summary is, so it's a little easy for people to digest what these numbers would cover, if there's any reimbursements, and then operational savings, things of that nature, the time frame of doing the repairs, safety considerations. I would like to see in the immediate future, the fire chief, and the health department weigh in on the current Neary conditions to give us an expedited timeline of real needs and assessments for any real safety considerations we have to address before we put students back in there after the summer. So I'd like to see some of those, but there's a lot of columns here. If there's domino effects of us doing a project, would something else cost more because as a result that we'd like to do? Would it cost less because we have space available in some other way? I'd like to see all of that sort of stuff come together and have a factual single document we can work off of that we can then use to shape what we might do next. I also think that the public should have pretty much full decision-making on kind of the next steps of this. Like I'd support some kind of survey that we could kick back to the town and let the town kind of look at this. So from a starting standpoint, I don't want to go too far except fill this in a bit with the educational knowledge we've gained at this point. Update the numbers from 2 years ago to the best numbers we have today. And then maybe we do an RFP of a private fixing of Neary on the deferred maintenance plan and maybe some best wishes that we'd like to put into there. But there's more to it, but that's my general thoughts in a nutshell.
Thank you. Al?
I sort of said a number of things, but I do think we need essentially a pre-K to 8 student housing plan and committee, whatever you want to call it. We need to have a fulsome review of whether it is possible to make a 3-school system of some configuration work. I'm not advocating for or against that, but we definitely need to dig into it to understand, because we have 3 schools which are in very good condition. And, the other thing, I need to say to people is we all know this is going to cost money. And it's going to be a non-trivial sum. And then I guess I want to share we want to talk about the cooling off and trust. And I think the select board needs to take a step back as well, because the vote that was held this weekend last week was a rebuke of this board as well. I mean, 4 out of 5 of the members of this board the then members supported the program that was clearly out of sync with the desires of the town. And I think this board has some work to do to regain trust. And I'd say that because we are very likely to face a Prop 2.5 override in about less than a year. And we need to make sure that we do not antagonize the voters. I spoke to somebody who's working at the elections, and he said the voters were angry. And we don't need angry voters. We need, particularly not when we're going to have to ask for a 2.5 override. So I think a new committee, we need to have a substantial representation of people who said no. And we need to have a fulsome review of 5 or 6 options, something on that order, which have to include, is there a 3-school configuration that we can make work? Even if it means we have to put a non-trivial sum of money into one of our 3 schools, or perhaps even 2 of our 3 schools. I think there are some operational savings. I'll just throw out the silly number. If the roughly $1.1 million in operational savings is actually could be realized, that actually represents the debt service on about 16 or $17 million unless interest rates go up. And so we are actually talking about an opportunity where we have, if we can work in 3 schools and achieve the operational savings, we could conceivably have 15, 16, $17 million of capital available to implement that plan without raising taxes. And I don't get to say that very often, but the numbers just work out that way. Now, there's many a slip twixt the cup and the lip, and you actually have to achieve the savings, but we need to take a step back. I think there still is a little cooling off that's needed. And I think we need a pre-K to 8 student housing committee. And I think they have to begin to assess those 5 or 6 options, and then with a significant representation of people who were dissatisfied with the current offering.
Andrew?
I agree with a lot of what you said, and also just to, confront the issue that I was someone that voted in favor of this project and supported it, but recognized that the votes were overwhelmingly against it, and it's kind of a, humbling experience. And, there was a message sent by these votes, and it's been heard. Although I think just from our standpoint, we need to do some really careful thinking about exactly what that message was in terms of, the biggest factors for the no vote, whether it's, I think from what I've heard from reaching out to people who are friends and voted no, is that one of the biggest concerns is cost. And I think that's, the forefront, not only in how we approach this, but also, the next budgeting process for fiscal year 26 and having options. So I feel good that from, we're in a good time where, there's some irony in the fact that at the Neary Building Committee meeting from last Thursday, I think, was one of the most highly attended, or the most highly attended, was after the vote. So there's, that's extremely frustrating from the standpoint of the people on the committee. But, now you have a lot of people engaged, really thinking about this. I think the way that, I think there's a consensus among us about, the so-called Plan B. We should look at it further, and how much does it cost, and thinking methodically about what are the, pros and cons. The MSBA process was one that didn't really permit that flexibility. But I struggle with the idea that seems like we're heading. I also think, I've seen the emails from people who are parents or have kids who are soon to going to be in Neary. I am a parent of a 4th grader at Neary. There's some urgency to this to address the concerns that kind of came out in the process about the state of Neary. And, in terms of the future composition of the committee, whatever we call it, which, could be the topic of an agenda, as soon as our next meeting, where we start to mark up versions of it, is, you hear different things when you're kind of talking to people who voted no about experts. Some, like we hear tonight, some people say, I want to hear from more experts. Some people, I hear that there's just a mistrust of opinion, which is characterized as expert opinion. I think that this is, now at a point where it's changing to become a much more kind of bottom-up driven process, where there's just a lot of listening, getting a sense of what are things that people support. You know, we've heard about what people don't support. What do people support? And then letting that, you know, dictate the next steps. So, I mean, thank you for everyone for coming and, you know, being so engaged in this. I mean, we're on the board right now in a very difficult, challenging position about trying to think about how we go forward. And the competitive yes and no part of this is over. All right. You know, the no vote won decisively, and it's just that now we need help. Think about how we solve a common problem.
Thank you. So we got 46 here tonight. So this is actually the best attended meeting so far. So we're going in the right direction. So I'm not sure which one of you used the word humble a minute ago, but someone did. So probably as far as sitting up here, I'm by far the most humbled for a variety of reasons. But I do believe in the Neary Building Committee. And when we actually take a vote on what to do, you know, the current charge expires June 30th. So something has to be done then, one way or the other. Anyway, I would still support some version of the current, and I'm all for changing the name. That's fine. No quibble there. Call it K through 8 study committee, whatever Al said as far as housing, K through 8 housing. Fine. No quibble there. But I do think that the Neary Building Committee itself should not be disbanded. It can be called something else and be added to. I do think we need people that did not support the project, and I've already talked to a couple and suggested they consider working with us, and that was well received. So absolutely open to seeing what we all agree to next time we get together and see if we can see if this board can come to a consensus as far as what that group should look like. But I'm open-minded, but I do believe the Neary Building Committee itself should kind of be the start, and then we expand it and change it from there. All right. So thank you guys. Thank you everybody for coming as far as listening to us tonight, and we will continue to work on this and figure it out. So
I need to move to adjourn the Neary Building Committee. Is there a second? All right, roll call vote. Roger,
Yes.
Denise, Mark, Andrew,
Aye.
Kathy,
aye.
and I am I as well.
Thank you
Thank you.
guys. Thank you. Chelsea? I got
Yeah.
Chelsea. I got it, guys. I got it. I got it.
You didn't
Chelsea,
forget
go
about me.
ahead.
I moved to adjourn Southborough K-8 School Committee at 9:06. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Roger,
Yes.
Laura,
Say yes, Denise. Okay. I didn't hear
Denise.
either. Chelsea,
Okay.
Denise said yes.
All right, perfect. And Chelsea's
you,
yes.
guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we will take a quick break. 5 minutes. So we will take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Should I leave it out? That's fine. I usually leave it out when I speak. Maybe it's better. It strikes me that it's like I'm just understanding.
Okay, that's too much information. Where we're actually you had somebody on a request of we're gonna apply for
Just checking in. Are we coming back from break soon?
All right, we're back in session at, what time is that? Turn my phone off. 9:16, at 9:16. All right, let's do the consent agenda quickly. We got A, B, C, D, and E. Anybody want to hold minutes for A?
Yes,
Who said yes?
Tim.
Tim? You're gonna hold minutes for minutes you weren't at? For meetings you
I'd like to
weren't at?
abstain just because I wasn't
That's
there.
fine. Well, don't hold them for that. You can abstain when you vote.
Okay, then that's fine.
Okay. Okay, anybody want to hold B? Okay, C, I'm holding D and E.
E, same thing.
Yeah, so I got to know, was introduced to Kate Otenti at the last tricentennial committee meeting, so I support this, but if anyone has any questions, want to discuss it a little bit more, I'm happy to.
And the reason she's not here, she teaches yoga on Tuesday nights, and she's going to always teach yoga on Tuesday nights. So we just thought Andrew's fine with it. Let's go ahead and do it. She sounds like she's a good one, right, Vanessa?
Yes.
All right, so that's why she's on consent. She can't get here. Okay, so no one's going to hold minutes, so let's approve A, B, D, and E. So I make a motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, D, E.
Just to ask. So moved.
Second.
All right, I moved. You just second.
Thank you.
All right, it's getting late. Okay, roll call vote. Tim, you can abstain.
Abstain.
So let me back up. We're gonna do this differently. So you don't want, let's do this the right way because you want to abstain for minutes. Okay, so let's make a motion to approve the minutes from April 11th, April 29th, and May 6th.
So moved.
Okay, roll call vote. Now, Tim, you can abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, Al,
Aye.
Marguerite,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
and Cook is aye. So 4-0-1 on the minutes. Now, Tim, you can vote on the rest of them, if you want. So
Wasn't part of.
that's actually, I'm holding those anyway, so sorry, guys. They've got some changes that need to be made to them. Okay, so the motion is to approve items B and D. Do we have a second?
Oh, second.
Okay, all right, roll call vote. Tim,
Yes.
Al,
Aye.
Marguerite?
Aye.
Okay, Andrew?
Aye.
And Cook is aye. Okay, now, C is accepting the donations from Faith School, the $20,000 toward the police cruiser and $10,000 toward the safety complex. All I'm going to say is, at the next meeting, I will do a full report on all the meetings we had with the private schools, New England Children's Center, St. Mark's, Fay and Harvard, so that everybody can see, we'll continue the spreadsheet that we started to show where we're going. And again, we've got about, I think, $50,000 more this year than we had in past years. So I'll do a full report next time, including the meeting that resulted in this Fay contribution. Okay, so there's that. The executive session minutes, I do have changes. We're going to have to do that in executive session, so those will not get approved tonight. And the changes I've got are substantive, they're not trivial. Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the acceptance of the Fay School $30,000.
Second.
Roll call vote. Al?
Aye.
Marguerite?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Tim?
Yes.
And Cook is aye, 5-0. Okay, and then we're going to hold the executive session.
said 30,000 in the 10,000.
I said 30. It's,
just 30, but there's 30 and 10.
no, it's not. It's 20 and 10. That's 30.
Oh, it's just.
It's 30. Trust me, I know the number. I know the number. Okay, all right, let's keep going. All right, so we've got some appointments we need to do for fiscal year 26. There is, what, 15 or so, and these are ones that have to be sworn in by the clerk, which is why they're on this list. I still don't know why we do this, but whatever. Okay, so have anybody on this list they'd want to hold?
No.
Okay, so Margaret, why don't you make a motion to approve all of the staff appointments on the spreadsheet in front of us?
Okay, do I have to read them?
No.
Okay.
You agree?
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, I move that we approve the staff appointments on the list.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Come on, guys, we're slow tonight.
This is
Okay.
where we missed
Second.
Sam already.
It absolutely is. Okay, Jim? Okay, there's an asterisk down here saying they all have to be. That's why I said that. Okay. All right, anyway, again, I don't know why we have to do this with just these certain ones, but whatever, we'll deal with that at a different day. We'll do it to make sure people get to keep working, right? Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Al?
Aye.
Marguerite?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And Cook is aye, 5-0, so they are appointed. Okay, next, set summer schedule, including our goal setting process meeting, assuming that's what we want to do like we have for the last 3 years. Okay, so if we kept on doing the first and third Tuesdays, it'd be 6/3, 6/17, 7/1, 7/15, 8/5, and 8/19. Anybody want to change that and eliminate one because it's summer? We can do the goal setting separately.
I think we should do this goal setting separately.
Okay.
I do not think we should. I think what we usually have done is 2 in June, probably. And then once you get to July, it's kind of debatable. And then definitely August is 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to keep 2 July, 2 June for now, and then do 1 in August, and then we can eliminate the second one in July if we end up with a sparse agenda?
That makes sense to me.
2 June, 2 July,
Al?
and 1 in
Tim?
August.
Tim?
It sounds okay to me right now.
All right, so you got that?
So we'll do July 8 and 22? Or do you
Well,
want?
July 1st is the first Tuesday,
It is.
right?
Yeah, I'm not available on the 15th.
Okay, well, we can,
You can
we'll
work-
survive. We'll
You can work
survive.
around me?
I got
Okay.
Vanessa. Okay, so just for now, we're gonna say 6/3, 6/17.
Yep.
So Tim, I'm trying to make sure you hear this since this is new to your calendar. 7/1, 7/15, and then we want to say 8/19 as far as August one.
That could work for me. I could also do 8/5. I know I can't do 8/12.
Okay, who prefers, so Al, would you rather do the 5th or the 19th?
I can't do the 5th.
I'm indifferent.
All right, one indifferent, one can't. You like the 19th, right, Andrew?
I'm fine with the 5th or the 19th.
Okay, so let's just do the 5th. Tim, are you okay with August 5th versus August 19th?
My preference is the 19th.
I can't do the 5th.
You can't do the 5th. Okay, you're okay with the 19th?
I'm okay.
And Al, you're indifferent?
Yep.
Okay, so Tim, you can do the 19th?
Yeah.
Okay, 8/19.
Okay.
Okay, now let's talk about the goal-setting special meeting, which we think we probably should do sooner than later, right?
Yeah, I think ideally, the week of June 9th. And do we have to, I think it could help if we, do not have to do it necessarily on the Tuesday.
You wouldn't have to.
Because,
We can do it at the Public Safety Building. Doesn't have to be, it can just be an in-person meeting like we've been doing, right? And pick that up if you want to.
so, like, the best times for me would be June Well, we have a tricentennial committee meeting on June 11th, I guess, but like June 12th. Thursday, June 12th.
Al?
That's my anniversary.
Okay. No meeting. for you.
Or maybe
I can do.
No,
Uh,
that's, you gotta.
Are you sure? Sounds dangerous to me.
We're just gonna be working in the garden.
we could also, oh, okay, because we could also just begin a little bit earlier, like. Or,
I have to miss yoga.
Yeah, we'll be done.
It's what keeps me going, Andrew. It truly keeps me going.
a lot.
Okay, so
What day?
Al, are you sure we can pick a different day?
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Okay, June the 12th? Tim,
Yeah, it looks okay.
looks okay?
what time?
Yep.
So what time do you want to start? 6:30?
6?
6, okay, 6 o'clock? At the Public Safety Building, training?
Oh,
room?
wait, you want to do it in the evening?
I was
Wait.
thinking, what about just the, early evening?
In the past, we've done these on a Saturday.
No, not this one. We've always done this one. This is not the meeting where we do the budget thing. That is on a Saturday. This we've done at night. And.
But I think we have done it, my recollection is earlier, and even if we,
We may have started 5:30.
yeah, 5 a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
It shouldn't take more than.
yeah, I can't do the 12th.
Okay, all right. So that's why, all right, so you're gonna work in the gar, all right, I get it now. All right, so what about the following week?
Well, here's another thing. Another thing is I could just do the June 11th, and do you know what time the tricentennial committee meeting is? Yeah.
Oh, so, okay, so do
So
it the
shift it to
11th?
7:30, so it gives us enough time, because we've got some serious stuff to talk about.
Okay, so.
5 o'clock
On the 11th?
on the 11th,
5 p.m.
Tim?
Yeah, that can work.
Okay, so 6/11 at 5 PM.
Yeah.
And you'll check on the training room? Okay. It's free, okay, good. Okay, everybody okay with summer schedule?
Okay.
And goal setting meeting, right?
Yep.
Okay, you're okay?
Yes.
All right. Yep. Okay, next is vote to support the one-stop grant application and matching funds for the wastewater community application. So you want to come on up, Clear? You want to tell us what you did before? Al?
Yeah, so there are two one-stop applications that the wastewater committee has been working on. One of which is to build a wastewater treatment plant in the downtown area. And the second one is to get some engineering support to help us define a site and to do site evaluations for.
Is the first one to actually build one or to do the work to find one and engineer it and whatever? So is the first one?
Actually to build one.
Okay, all right.
It's, wait, I didn't attend the last meeting because I was trotting around doctor's offices. So we'll let Claire come up and help set me straight. How's that? I can talk more about the second one, I think, than that. Yep.
Okay.
So, yes, Al wasn't there on
Monday.
yesterday. At that meeting, it was decided that instead of doing the original ask, which had been provided in the expression of interest, that we would do a community planning grant for downtown in order to get ducks in order for figuring out what can actually be done with downtown.
All right.
Okay, that's
So-
not what Al just said. So-
Well, no,
Okay.
this was a decision
Okay,
that was
That's
made
why I'm
on
sitting in the
Monday.
back of
Okay.
the room.
And she's there to bail me out.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. He needs a little help these days.
No, I'm just trying to, 'cause you know what, I'm worried about where the match is coming from. So, okay, keep.
So, it's it's completely different. It's to put together, to just net it out, it's a, master plan for the downtown. We have a master plan, we have all of these studies, we have, all of the work has been put together, but we've got bits and pieces piecemeal. the whole thing needs to be put together so that we can prove to the state that we do have a plan for downtown. And as we spoke, to be able to hopefully get private investment involved with it.
Okay.
So
just
what
to
the
be
plan
clear-
is for what they call a community community development plan. Last year for FY '25, the program awarded 34 grants under this category to municipalities, a lot of them similar to Southborough, but Worcester was included and whatever. They went in the range from $13,000 to $150,000. I had suggested, kind of like lowballing a little bit, essentially it would be to have a professional planner put together several different types of scenarios that would work for the downtown. I figured in the range of $20,000, only because I had looked at what the grants were that had been given similar to that. The committee wanted to go with more money, more around 50,000. As we just discussed, the more money you go, the more the match is going to be. Okay, so that's number one for downtown.
What's the match on this one?
Excuse me?
What is the match?
It's 25%.
Okay, so $12,500 needs to come from something. And do you have to, when you do this, you don't tell the state you've got the money. You just know that if it's approved, you got to come up with the match, right?
Right.
In the actual grant itself, it's actually one of the sections that has to be responded to. Do you have the money, so to speak, sitting in the bank? Do you have to vote to approve the money, or where's the money going to come from? Now, one of the things that you have to realize is that this match can be funds, or it can also be what they call in-kind services. And in the two previous grants that I managed, we did it with in-kind services and some grants. It was a combination. So the way that in-kind services works is if we had for this particular one for downtown, if we had a commitment that, for example, the town planner, and this is just a, what if, okay, that the town planner could work with the planning agency or whoever it is that's going to do this, could commit X number of hours. You take that person's salary, and that's what is included in terms of the hours as part of the match.
When are the grants due? June what? Okay, so you got not much time left to do this, and you're still not sure what you're going to say about the match in this? I mean, what are we voting?
Weston and Sampson is working on writing the grant.
Okay. But if you've got to say in that you've got the match, when
Well,
are we going to say that?
We don't have to say that. That is one of the options. We can say that, if awarded this, we can go to town meeting and ask for the matching funds.
Yes.
We have to contract this within a year, within the same fiscal year, which we would have time to do.
Right, so the awards will be it'll start January 26, and you have a year after that, year and a half.
I'm just trying to understand what okay, so you can wordsmith in a way that you don't have to have the money sitting in the bank at the point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so what are we voting on for this one then? I mean,
Okay, so, but what they do want in the application, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is they want the select board to support the application and to support the idea that we would
find a
find the match.
Okay.
And, so there are two things. One, we need to identify who the chief executive officer of the town is. And Mark tells me that person, to the extent that that person exists, is the chair of the select board. And we were trying to stick it on Mark, but he artfully ducked it. And then we need a vote of the select board to support. I've also reached out to our reps. I've heard from Kate Donahue. I haven't heard from Jamie Eldridge yet. And Kate will write us a letter of support as well.
Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is the actually Route 9 one.
This is the Route 9 one, and that is again, if you guys have changed it, I'm good with that.
There's no surprise on this.
Okay, so that is technical engineering support for helping us identify and qualify sites, and then to do engineering analysis, which would be principally be soils analysis, which would involve doing things like doing bores to determine whether the site is actually suitable for disposal.
How do you know you've got enough money in both of these?
We are asking for $400,000 for that, and that was a number that the DEP kind of said was the right ballpark.
Okay. All right, so all you want is a vote of support from select board to support the actual applications themselves and the willingness of the select board to find the match if we get approved.
Yeah,
Right? Simple as that?
yeah, that's it.
Okay, so I mean, of the different, the most like realistic way of finding the match that I've heard that so far is just, if we get the grant, then we could go to town meeting too.
If you go to town, if we,
Or at that point, it's well enough educated, you're prepared to, because remember what, on the financial policies that we recently approved, one of them did address this exact situation, right? And, does say it is our official policy. We make a, determination, or we've got some understanding of where the match is going to come from before we go for a grant. So,
Well, the reality is that if we don't come up with the money, we don't get the grant.
yeah, no, I hear you.
Simple as
I
that.
hear you. But I'm just saying, and maybe it's not even really all that relevant for right now, but
But we are
That's the
spending,
mo-
but we are spending money to develop a grant application,
Yes.
right? So we really should have an idea of how we're gonna come up with.
So that I can suggest,
wasn't
match.
Sampson doing them both?
yes,
So they've been hired to do them both,
yes.
right? That's a yes or no question. Why are you looking at me like that?
Yes, they
Okay.
are
All right,
doing both.
okay. So they've been hired. You got a professional working on both of these. You
Yep.
know, they've got 9 days, right?
Um,
I mean, we're not going to turn down.
I wasn't involved with the contract or anything, but we had a meeting
Yeah.
yesterday. I'll be very honest, I would have expected we would have been much further along in terms of what they were providing, particularly with Route 9, since they were the ones who did the wastewater feasibility study and made the recommendations in the document that they provided to us, for which they got $30,000.
All right, that's your issue to get.
That
That's not-
in terms of
that's
what
not-
are the
We're
next
not going to deal with
steps?
that tonight. So let's just do the vote that is needed to support both of the grants, assuming that's what everybody wants to do, right?
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't want to turn around $400,000, so we'll find a way to find the match when.
I think there are a couple of alternatives. So for example, if we receive, I believe the grants begin to trickle out in the late summer. And if we had a fall town meeting and we had, I believe it's certified our free cash, we could conceivably allocate it from that, or we could put it as a line item in the annual.
Okay, we know-
Yeah,
okay,
you guys know.
Figure it out when we get there. Let's just vote. So you got your vote to go forward here, right?
Yeah, just as assurance, one of the things that could be done, and I know that you have talked to developers along Route 9. They're in favor of this. It's in their best interest to, if the town gets involved with us. From the one-stop side of things, the more you have private investment involved with it, the better your chances are. And even if we were to ratchet down the money instead of 400,000 to make it lower, and say just 200 or 300,000. So you're talking 50,000 or 75 as your match. You can get a developer, several developers to kick in $10,000 on a
But
study
again,
like that.
we'll figure that out once we got
Right.
the grant, okay? All right, so Andrew, you make a motion to support both of the applications?
I move that we support both of the one-stop grant applications.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Tim?
My only comment is, as long as we can take this up later to do the exact details, and this is just that we will support it to move forward, as I just heard, I'm in support.
I'm not quite sure whatever. Okay, so we're trying to vote. Okay, so now we've had a motion, second, and discussion. Al?
Aye.
Marguerite?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Cook is aye. Tim?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0 to support. Now, second part of this, does the select board support determining where the match would come from if these grants were to be successful? It's a two-part thing here. They want to know that we support the grant too, that we're going to find the match. So I'm trying to make sure that you put the words in there, the yes, select board has voted to find the match if we need to.
Okay, so second.
Okay, all right, roll call vote. Al?
Aye.
Marguerite?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Cook is aye. Tim?
Aye.
Okay, done. So you got your two votes to put in there, and whoever the chair is will sign what they've got to and push them along to get it done.
We'll talk.
Okay.
Goodbye, Claire. All right, so last item. So we annually elect a new chair, vice chair to the select board. It's a tradition and it's on the agenda. So anyone want to make a motion?
I move that we vote for Andrew Dennington for chair of the select board.
All right, anyone else would like to be chair?
I move that we vote for Al Hamilton for chair of select board.
All right, so we will vote for both. Okay, so Marguerite, you went first. So the motion is to appoint or to elect Andrew as the chair for the next year. I'll second the motion. I'll second both. I'll second the motion. So all in favor of Andrew being chair for next year? Roll call vote, sorry. Marguerite?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Cook is aye. Tim?
No.
Al?
No.
All right, so that's a 3-2 vote. So let's just go through the motions of Al. So I'll make a motion. Okay, all right. Okay, vice chair. So you know the vice chair is not unimportant. The vice chair a few years ago, was designated to work with the chair to set the agenda and obviously would run the meetings if the chair is not there. So it's not trivial. I will make a motion to appoint Marguerite as vice chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Anyone else want to be vice chair? Tim?
I'd make a motion for Al to be vice chair.
Al?
No, I'm going to pass.
Well, let's make sure. Okay, so the motion is to appoint Marguerite as vice chair. Is there a second? I think it was a
Second.
Okay, all right. Roll call vote. Al?
No.
Marguerite?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Cook is aye. Tim?
Yes.
Okay, so that is 4-1 to appoint Marguerite as vice chair. Congratulations to you two. Good luck.
It will be a challenging year, so hopefully we will all work together to do what we need to do.
All right, do we have anybody in the audience, Vanessa? Good. All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
What is Jim mumbling about?
Do we have to vote to adjourn?
Yes, we have to vote to adjourn. So motion to adjourn. Second,
Second.
everybody?
Second.
Everybody
All
second.
right, roll call vote. Al?
Aye.
Marguerite?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Cook is aye. Tim, good night.
Yes.
Good luck
Aye.
tomorrow.